Carol, there should be a window popping up on your screen to rejoin as a panelist. So you'll want to accept that invitation to become a panelist. We are live on YouTube.
Great. All right, so we can begin. Good evening, everyone. I now call the October 13th, 2021 special meeting of the Lafayette General Plan Advisory Committee to order. This meeting is streaming live on the city's YouTube and is also accessible by Zoom. The link to log in is on the city's calendar. We'll do a roll call for those committee members in attendance. Staff will read the names aloud. Committee members, when you hear your name, please affirm your presence.
All right. Stella Wotherspoon.
Present.
Carol Singer. I see Carol. We can come back. Namrata Kaslanati.
I am.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Carol. Don Jenkins. Thank you. Matt Pease.
Present.
Beth Needle.
Present.
Jim Cervantes. Not present. Christine Rasmussen. Absent. Susie Kelly.
Here.
Mike Kim.
Here.
Chris Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Radnich.
Present.
And Mayor Kendall.
Yeah, here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Would a committee member like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda for October 13th, 2021.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right, the agenda is adopted. Moving on to public comment. This section of public comment will be for any item that is not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes, and if you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand.
We've had several public comments, so I will let Chairman Nadine enter.
Okay.
While he's joining, it looks like Jim and Christine have also joined the meeting.
That's great.
My apologies for being late.
No problem.
Good for me to go?
Yes. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, it has been a while. So good to see you all. I am here today to talk about the term semi-rural, the hot topic from the GPAC's mission statement surveys. And here's my take. Semi-rural is an ambiguous term that divides our community and fails to achieve its intended purpose. First, the divisiveness of semi-rural. In the first mission statement survey, semi-rural was ranked the 4th highest priority. I don't see being ranked 4th as a strong indicator of overwhelming support. The second survey gets even more interesting. Nearly as many respondents mention semi-rural negatively as those that mention it positively. It's a close split, and that's from a survey population that was whiter and older than our town actually is. I'm as surprised as anyone. I expected semi-rural to receive more one-sided support, but the survey data shows that semi-rural really divides our community, and this division would be worthwhile if language about Lafayette's semi-rural character achieved its stated purpose, but I'm not sure it does. I may be misunderstanding, but it seems that those promoting semi-rural want Lafayette suburban neighborhoods to remain quiet and tree-lined, with a low-density downtown and lots of open space throughout the city. Yet under Lafayette's history as a self-described semi-rural community, hundreds of acres of our hillsides have been destroyed by sprawl, traffic has become a mess, and the city has been unable to finance new public spaces in and around our downtown. To begin with, semi-rural is ill-defined. Are semi-rural communities bisected by freeways? Are they connected to huge public transit networks? Are they located within the most productive economic region on Earth? Because Lafayette is all of those things. Maybe some parts of Lafayette could be classified as semi-rural, but honestly, I truly do not know what semi-rural means, and I've considered Lafayette home my entire life. Last night, and this is last night, a few hours ago basically, I returned to Lafayette after spending more than 4 months road tripping across America, and I passed through over a dozen communities that look nearly identical to Lafayette. Smaller, leafy suburbs with low-density urban cores. If that's what semi-rural means to you, then that doesn't make our community unique. In fact, it makes us very generic. The top 3 priorities our community chose in the first mission statement survey: safe, family-friendly, and parks and trails may not be any less generic than semi-rural, but at least these terms have clearer definitions. Our community will be best served by our new mission and our housing element if these documents use clearly defined language that has broad-based community support. The GPAC surveys and our community's own history shows that semi-rural does not meet either of these criteria. Thank you for your consideration. Keep up the great work. You'll be hearing more from me in the near future. So really good to see all of you. Take care.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Elect David Clark in the meeting room. And again, this is public comment for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make one, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. A couple of things, a couple of housekeeping things. These are really quick. One is that personally, I think that the mission statement subcommittee is more accurately a mission statement task force. And maybe it's just me, but I'd prefer to use that term because I think it's consistent with the city's terminology. The second thing is, and I know that this is a special meeting and I know you had a hard time finding a night, but I'd like to suggest that we keep GPAC meetings to Tuesdays as much as possible. Tonight, for example, it conflicts with a Park Trails and Rec Commission meeting, and there's a lot of overlap with that. So those are 2 quick things. The more substantive comment I wanted to make, and I haven't heard this elsewhere, it has to do with housing, and I know you're working on the housing element, and specifically it has to do with SB 9, which, as you know, has been both passed and signed into law by the governor, and it'll take effect on January 1st of next year. And probably, as you also know, what SB 9 allows is 2 units of housing on what heretofore had been a single family residence lot. And it also, that's one thing. It's another thing it also allows is the subdivision of that lot into 2 parcels, on each of which there can be 2 units of housing. In addition, the ADU ordinance is not part of SB 9. It's a separate ordinance, and there's nothing on its face that precludes the ADU ordinance from also applying to those same 2 parcels, except in SB 9, there is language that says if both of those things occur, 2 units on a parcel and there's the lot is also subdivided so that there are 2 units on 2 parcels, in that case, the city or the local ordinance has the ability to not allow the application of the ADU ordinance. That's a decision, and I think, I'm not positive about this, I think the default to doing nothing is ADU ordinance applies on top of the provisions in SB 9. So if we as a community want to if we want to do nothing, that's fine, because that's the way that law is written. But if we want to not allow ADUs on those subdivided parcels, we need to take some affirmative action. And ideally, that affirmative action should be taken before January 1st of next year when the law goes into effect. So I don't know how that wedges in or fits in with what you're planning to do between now and then, but I wanted to pass on that information because I think that's all technically accurate. And so I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Quick comment, Chris, if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
So at our next council meeting, we are having a staff report on SB 9 and SB 10. And it might be reasonable if you guys want to listen in, or maybe even make a request that you guys might want to join the meeting and listen to it as well. I'm throwing that out there because we're going to be discussing it.
Great. Thank you very much. Yep. John?
The date of the council meeting, Susan?
25th, I believe. Yes, October 25th.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, David. Do we have any more public comment, Sarah?
We do. Tracy Farrell is in the meeting room.
All right, great.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Tracy Farrell. I'm a member of the Park Theater Trust Board of Directors. First of all, I want to thank you for the very important work you're doing on behalf of our community. These are challenging and changing times, but we need to meet them head on. And from everything I'm seeing and reading, you folks are doing a fantastic job. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm a longtime resident, so this is important to me and my family. I know you're deeply involved with the housing element of the general plan, but as that winds down, on behalf of the Park Theater Trust, I would respectfully ask that you focus your sights on a very important mission, or part of the newly drafted mission statement, and that is of keeping a vibrant downtown core. The members of the All Volunteer Park Theater Trust, or TPTT, as we try to call ourselves, who've worked so diligently since the city created the task force in 2018, believe that our mission is to protect the iconic Park Theater building and renew it into an accessible, inclusive, community-centered cinema, arts, and cultural hub for all of our residents is absolute key to that goal of the vibrant downtown core. Our research into local community cinemas all over the country has shown that the big screen keeps a downtown vital by drawing business throughout the year and is especially important in the wintertime. It's an economic engine for city restaurants and shop owners and a defining element of the small town. Per a recent Ernst & Young report on the economic contributions of the movie industry published in August 2021, it's estimated that movie operations and movie night spending generated more than $4.9 billion nationwide in federal, state, and local tax revenue, with state and local taxes nearly split, with state and local taxes nearly 50% of that number. And interestingly, the spending was shown to be split almost equally between retail and dining. And as important to the community is how local cinema binds us together. It creates shared experiences that turn into treasured memories. It can align programming with schools, libraries, and other nonprofits to support, educate, and impact today's critical conversations. It's a place for everyone to go, kids, families, seniors, date night, and to be entertained together. We've just launched an $8 million capital campaign. It's a one-time ask of our community. There's also the ongoing community-wide survey regarding distribution of the ARPA funds the city has received. With its plan to reopening the Park Theater Trust, the Park Theater, TPTT offers tangible and transformative benefits to our entire community and its economy. We ask you as a committee and as individuals to please support us as council deliberates, and we look forward to any opportunities there might be to engage with you as a committee further so we can work together to make this vision a reality. Our website is www.parktheatertrust.org. And speaking of vibrant, you might consider visiting the Jennifer Perlmutter Gallery over the next few weeks for her new neon exhibit, which is celebrating the 80th anniversary of the Park Theater's opening in 1941. Thank you again for everything you do.
Thank you, Tracy. Sarah, any more public comment?
One more, and they are headed in now.
Can I speak now?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Back to the word semi-rural. I'm thinking that word, we should not really overthink it. I think it's a safe term to use, and it's a good descriptor for our town. And we shouldn't shun that word. Semi to me means partial. So part of the town, I mean, it's partially rural. And when you compare it to other towns in California, and especially in the Bay Area, I think it's pretty safe to say semi-rural, and it fits our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
I don't see any other hands raised. If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand function now. There are no other hands raised at this time.
No other hands raised. Okay, great. Thank you all for your comments. The next item on the agenda is committee member activity reports. If any committee member has something to report in, please let us know.
Chris,
Matt?
yeah,
Yep.
just a brief meeting that I had with Councilperson Kwok. We met with him along with Jay Lifson and the president of the chamber. It was an introductory meeting just to get to know each other. We talked a little bit about the mission of GPAC, how we were, where we were with the housing plan. He's recently been attending some of the meetings, and then he also gave us some feedback on kind of the mission and vision statement work that we've been doing. It was a pretty high level, quick meeting, but it was great to get his input and get to know him a bit more.
Great.
I also met with new Councilmember White Tay, and he wanted to share with myself and just pick my brain with respect to public-private partnerships and development opportunities as we go forward. So again, it was just also high-level policy stuff. Pretty interesting.
Great. And as long as we're on the subject, Mayor Kandel and I had a phone conversation with Councilmember Kwok probably a few weeks ago now. And again, very high level, discussing GPAC's activities over 2021. And it was a very good meeting, I thought.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Namratha and then Jim.
Thank you. I had two things to report. I also met with Councilmember Kwok at the DEIB meeting, the Teen Voices one. So yeah, it was very nice to meet him. Then we talked high level conversation about, like, not very specific, but just started discussing the general plan and mission statement. It was pretty cool. The other thing is that yesterday at the Youth Commission meeting, I did debrief some of the general plan aspects and started getting some ideas about the youth event that we're going to do at Akalani's, or kind of a series of youth events we're going to do at Akalani's regarding the housing element and mission statement. And so, yeah, about it.
Great, thank you. Jim?
So I'd like to make this a royal flush and say that I also met with new Councilmember White Kwok. And my conversation was really oriented around, I guess what I would call municipal bonds 101 from my prior life, talking about the way that California cities can, finance projects basically given state and federal laws. So it's a productive conversation. And the second thing I want to mention, and I think you all know this, but the mission statement subcommittee, and maybe we'll call ourselves a task force now, made a presentation to the city council last night, just an update on the kind of where we are and sort of an overview. You can catch it live on the YouTube video if you want. But I thought that was helpful. Hopefully the council got something out of that. So that just, if you want to catch it, I think we're like at the hour and a half mark or something like that. So that's it.
I want to say relative to Matt and Namratha and Jim presenting at the city council meeting last night, they put a lot of work into the product that they delivered last night. And I thought it went really well. I just want to thank you for putting your thinking caps on and trying to cover everything that the city council and the public would want to know at this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Good job. All right. Anybody else have a committee report? Commissioner's report?
I have my hand up.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Carol, sorry.
I do not have a report, but I have a comment. I echo what you say about their presentation. But could I or GPAC get a copy of your presentation?
Mhm.
And how do we do that? You can't print off the Zoom.
So what I can do is make a PDF of the PowerPoint file and get that to Sarah. Maybe Sarah could just distribute it on the distro list. I think that's the way we would do it.
Mhm.
Right, Sarah, that's for Sarah. Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Great. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Does anybody else have their hand up? I'm sorry, I just like obliterated half of my screen.
I don't see any other hands raised.
No? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the presentations tonight, and I just want to explain how this will work. There are two items to be discussed tonight. One are the housing element goals, and the other is the program criteria. So we're going to go completely through our normal process for goals and completely through our normal process for program criteria. And what I mean by that is that the staff will do their presentation. The committee will ask questions. We'll hear public comment. Then we'll have more discussion, and then we'll vote. And we will do that twice, one for the goals presentation and one for the program criteria. Was I clear enough on that? Okay. So we'll start off with the housing element goals and have a staff presentation on that. Staff, you may present.
Everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So as you know, this is a special meeting, so we didn't get to this matter the last September 21st meeting. So this is a special meeting just to talk about the goals and the criteria for the programs. So as Chair Lee mentioned, we're hoping to get through and agree upon the goals, and understanding that there's still a lot of process ahead of us and things can change, but we need a good base to start from. And then also the criteria for the programs, so that when we decide whether or not to include a program in our evaluation or in our general plan and in the housing element, we are basing it on some set of criteria. So a little bit of background context, you've seen this slide before. We're doing the housing element in 3 sections. Background data, we're halfway through that. We are bringing back the summary at your next, background data summary narrative at your next meeting. But currently we're focusing on section 2, which is the goals, policies, and programs. And then eventually next year, we'll get to the land use plan, which includes the opportunity sites. Again, with the timeline, so we are here, environmental documents being prepared. We're in section 2, goals, policies, and programs, with our looming deadlines. This is sort of an overview of where we're intending to go over the next couple of meetings, and we wanted to just kind of give you a high level look ahead. Again, this is subject to change as we get new information or as we move through things more quickly or more slowly, but wanted to just give an overview. So at this meeting, we're hoping to get through our goals for the housing element, and then also the program criteria. At our next meeting, which is next Tuesday, which is our regular meeting, we would be starting in on the programs for 3 of the topics of the goals that we're looking at tonight. So we're introducing those topics at the next meeting. So you'll have your packet before the meeting. We'll talk about it at the meeting. And then at the next meeting, we would take action on those particular goals, or sorry, programs. So that gives quite a bit of time to work through some of the topics. So again, it's an introduction and then action at the next meeting, so that it kind of follows. So you'd hear it twice. We have our special mission statement meeting next week on Thursday, where we won't be talking about the housing element, but just the mission statement only. And then November and December, we'll move through the additional topics. And then at the end, we'll do a comprehensive review of the goals, policies, and programs. Again, subject to change, but just a high-level overview of where we're intending to go. So let's dive into the goals. So how the goals came about were we reviewed our existing housing element goals and recommended that all 5 of those be included, although they are slightly reworded and then in some cases or combined with other things. We proposed additional goals that responded to community input that we received or to satisfy new legal requirements. And then there were 2 opportunities for comments from GPAC. So we made revisions to those, and then those are outlined in your draft housing element goals, which were part of this packet. So this evening, we're hoping to finalize those goals. Previous comments received from GPAC were to number the goals, just knowing that that wouldn't actually necessarily be how they're ordered in the element itself, but just for conversation purposes, showing the existing goals so we know kind of verbatim, word for word, how it could be changing, indicating the mandatory goals versus the ones we have a little bit more discretion over, and that's a column 2 and their state mandated yes or no in your chart. Providing red line goals based on the feedback that we received from the group that also is in your chart. And then modifying some of the language to be a bit more aspirational rather than directive as it was. So as we go through this on the screen, and we'll have it up for reference as we're working through them, we have a first revision in orange and a second revision in blue. And hopefully we'll have a chance to discuss them. So our recommendation is to discuss the revisions to the goals, ask ourselves, should there be any further revisions? What are they? Work through that and then vote to finalize the goals. These are the 5 existing housing element goals. Those are in your packet and also included in the 3rd column in your chart. I won't read them verbatim, but they are, we can always use this as reference as we go through. In terms of the new or the proposed goals, as I mentioned, the blue was the first round, the orange was the first round draft, and then the blue is the second round draft as it relates to comments received from GPAC. So we'll just go through each of these and then I'll be able to pull them back up on screen if needed to talk about them directly. So the first 2 relate to infrastructure. Again, just as a category, infrastructure, the term infrastructure or that sort of category is not necessarily going to show up in the housing element itself. We'd have a list of our goals and then the programs under each goal. And the programs help implement the goal. So we're still high level here at the goals. So develop infrastructure systems with funding mechanisms that support the demands of housing development and future residents. Promote and encourage a vibrant commercial and retail downtown area that successfully meets the needs of residents and visitors. The city will encourage mixed use of retail, commercial, and residential building and zoning. Sustainability and environment, promote environmental responsibility and long-term sustainability through residential development to minimize contributions to global climate change. Promote housing opportunities for all persons regardless of race, age, gender, sexual orientation, marital status, ability, or national origin. Take affirmative actions to further fair housing choice in the city and remove impediments to fair housing. Work towards expanding the city's housing inventory and accommodate a variety of housing types that are attractive and affordable to potential renters and home buyers at a range of income levels. Work toward removing barriers to accessing affordable housing opportunities for persons with special housing needs, such as seniors, developmentally disabled, large households, very low to moderate income households, and first-time home buyers. In terms of height and density, facilitate and encourage a mix of housing types that are attractive and affordable to a diversity of ages, incomes, household types, household sizes, and cultural backgrounds. In terms of design and aesthetics, facilitate the provision of a wide variety of housing types appropriate for households with a variety of lifestyles and preferences while balancing valued aspects of the existing community character, including quality design and preservation of natural features. And then safety and regulatory compliance, adopt and implement a housing element that is in compliance with state law to work towards meeting the needs of all sectors of the community. So again, our recommendation is to discuss these revised goals, revise them again as needed, and then take a vote. So we're hoping to allow for 20 minutes for discussion and then voting, so that we'll have time to return and discuss the program criteria as well. And with that, I'll stop sharing until we need to reference the language again.
Sarah, would you provide us that first part of your PowerPoint, especially the dates of, upcoming dates and what will be there? We don't have that.
Sure. So I think it was adapted maybe from the staff report. There's a chart at the back of the staff report that kind of spoke to sort of the projected timeline. I think some of the dates have changed, but we certainly can send this current one over, and any subsequent one as it
changes. Yeah, in the staff report. You're saying this chart in the staff report.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, but the dates are a little bit different.
Yep, I will absolutely
get a copy of that. Thank you. You put that out.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Matt, you have your hand up?
Yeah, are you ready for comments or suggestions at this point?
So I think we're headed towards just questions at this point, and then public comment, and then discussion. Okay,
then my only question was on, and the example is on goal number 9. When you cross out provide and put in facilitate the provision, what's the difference? What does that mean from a layman's term? You change the wording. On number 9.
Sure. So it was meant to, one of the original GPAC comments was that a lot of these goals were very directive, like we have to achieve this, and facilitate is a little bit softer, a little bit more aspirational rather than directive.
So if you're measuring yourself on the goal, Sarah, how would you measure yourself on facilitating versus providing?
Sure. So facilitating would be providing sort of the programs that would allow for that type of thing to happen, whereas providing would be an actual number of units.
So in facilitating, you're really not accountable. You're just saying, I tried, and if I tried, then I achieved it. Whereas if it's provide, it's you need to deliver.
Right, and I do know that Diana had mentioned that HCD is a little bit is wanting the accountability factor, but I'll let her speak to that.
Yes, the goals are in terms of what the accountability factor is. It will be in the actual programs, not in the goals themselves. The actual accountability is for each program that we provide. We have to give units above that we project that will be built. We have to say when we're going to finish this particular project by. We're going to have to say whose money is involved. We have to say what department is responsible for it. So there is the accountability at the program level. The goal level is a statement of sort of a vision statement for this particular area.
So you're accountable for the program, but not the goal.
The states, what the state requires is the programs to have meaningful action items, and that's what they look at. The goals are sort of as it has been said, sort of more aspirational.
Okay, different way of doing goals from my past history, but I understand your answer. Thank you.
I guess I had the opposite impression of what facilitate meant, because I thought it meant that somehow you are actually involved in getting to the outcome. So like a facilitator in a meeting makes the meeting kind of go along. So to me, it's more of an action word or an involvement word.
Provide means like giving something tangible, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a deliverable. So
And it sounds like
I feel like facilitate, you're kind of on the hook for taking some kind of action.
I think hopefully we answered Matt's question.
Did, thank you.
And we can talk, like, do the debating about it after the vote. So maybe this is questions.
All right.
Excellent.
Answer my question.
All right. Mike Kim, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. On the diversity and inclusion goal, isn't that state law, Diana? And if so, are we being redundant?
It could, diversity inclusion, you mean, it is a requirement, yes, especially in terms of affirmatively furthering fair housing. I'm not sure what you're referencing being redundant.
Yeah, I guess all I'm asking is if it's already state law and every jurisdiction is required to, do we have to have a goal?
Yes.
Okay, we have to have a goal about
Yes.
it? All right, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Kendall.
Yeah, sure. So that getting back kind of what Matt was talking about, what are the legal ramifications of any of these? Like, you're saying that these are aspirational, but legally, as the city, what are we, if we put something in here and nothing happens, say, what is the legal ramifications to us?
It depends on what the item is. If a program actually has to do something that, for example, if a program says we will rezone this land in order to meet our RENA allocation, that's a legally enforceable item. If the program is to provide, first-time home buyers with a down payment assistance or something, and we don't do it, the state will ask us why, but that's not a legally enforceable item. However, they do track all of this information, and that if the balance of activities is there's nothing actually being done, then the state can say we're not in compliance with state law. So I think the enforceability of it, whether or not it's a legal enforcement, depends on the type of program that eventually will be offered, and what specific timelines and so forth will come from that.
So would you, I know we want to encourage more housing, but the city doesn't build housing. And there's no way we can force developers to build housing, and we can't, we approve projects and then they still don't build them. So how do we take that reality into, with this, and somehow make sure that the city's not liable to build housing if the developers don't build it? Or how do we get ourselves to a better place with all that?
We have to demonstrate that we've eliminated as many constraints to the development of housing that the city is.
Is that really
responsible
true,
for.
or do we just have to promote?
No, it's true.
Show me where we have to eliminate. I see the affirmatively fair housing. I get that, but then remove impediments to fair housing. Is that second part, the remove impediments to fair housing, is that in state law?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Can you send that out to us? That would be great. Because I just want to make sure that we're totally in compliance.
It's an AB 686.
AB 686. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So could you, by any chance, in here, indicate to us the ones, I know you have a state mandated yes or no, but in like each one of these items, could you indicate to us which ones we are legally have to have in there? And I guess that would be only in the ones that are state mandated, right? All the other ones are not state mandated. So we're just doing that on our own. But the ones that say yes, if like on diversity, equity, inclusion, 4 and 5, every single word in there is mandated. Like we have to say those.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So how about,
okay.
And there's no extra, and then under affordability, and there's no extra words in there that aren't legally mandated. I'm just trying to understand where, if there's anything that we've added that we should take a closer look at. If it's mandated, we put it in, right? But if it's not, then we should take a closer look at it to make sure it aligns with what we're
This
doing.
is all language from existing state law on the housing element, specifically that cities must provide accommodate a variety of housing types that are, the attractive part is a city, city, whatever, city word, that are affordable to potential renters and home buyers at a range of income levels. All of that, we don't have to build the units, but we have to facilitate and make sure that if a developer comes in and wants to do it, that they do not have any impediments to doing that work.
Right.
And we have to do it based on these special needs groups. We have to provide specific program language for each one of the special needs groups, and this new language for AFFH we have to include.
And AFFH, that's AB 686 is AFFH?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. I should go read that. All right.
Okay, we have Carol with her hand up and then Jim.
Oh, okay. Are we going through the goals one by one, or we just jump in when we have a comment?
Well, right now we're doing questions.
Okay.
So we can ask questions of clarification, etc. Then we're going to open it to public comment, and then we'll have a chance to have a discussion after hearing public comment.
All right. Well, I don't know where this falls, but on number 1, I thought the wording was funny. Develop infrastructure systems with funding mechanisms that support the demands of housing development. I don't know what seems to me it should be the needs of housing development and future residents. It's not the demands of future residents, is it? They can demand. And what are the demands? It should be the needs of housing development and the needs of future residents.
Carol, that does seem like a discussion item. So if we could table that until after public comment, we can return to that thought.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Jim and then Christine.
Thank you, Chair Lease. I think this is quick, but just to segue on the prior conversation. So there are certain things that we have to include per state law, and the table or the matrix is helpful identifying those, and there's others that are optional. And I suppose one could take the view that maybe we just do the bare minimum and that's it. But to me, I think that I take the view that this is really more aspirational. So the sustainability component, for example, is not required by state law as I read this, but nonetheless, I guess I take the view that's something we should include. So maybe we do these as we walk through the specifics later on, as to like, do we want to act on these things? But I guess the question is, and maybe we'll talk this later perhaps, but taking a more expansive view, which is really what this matrix is, because it's above and beyond what state law calls for in some of its components, is I think where we want to go. And maybe we could talk about that later. I just wanted to frame that. So.
Yeah, actually that's a great suggestion for structure in our discussion. Thank you. Okay, Christine.
I just have a question. I guess I'm a little bit confused on exactly what we need to have, that we must have in here. So for example, it says state mandated, yes, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when we do our actual housing goal, like if I look at the old one, right, on page 77, B77, it says goal H1, and it actually has the goal, but it doesn't include anywhere with D, E, and I written anywhere. So in other words, how we've structured this is we have D, E, and I, and it says, yes, it's mandated. We've got goal H4, promote housing opportunities for all persons, regardless of race, age, gender, sexual orientation, marital status, or national origin. But when I look at that, I also think that diversity and equity and inclusion would include H2, H3 also. So what part do we have to have in there? Do we have to have the verbiage, let's say item 4, also not DEI, the promote housing opportunities for all persons, et cetera, et cetera. We have to have that. And do we have to have take affirmative action to further fair housing choice in the city and remove impediments to fair housing? We have to have that verbatim. And do we have to have it, you know, does it matter where it is, or does it have to be somewhere in our goals, policies and procedures, or in our goals? So the question is, does it have to remain in the order in which it is I'm looking at now, or can these be moved around?
They do not have to be in any particular order. They're in this particular order for ease of review. And in terms of language pertaining to the goals, like in 4 and 5, this tracks language in housing element law.
Which means
it could be that we have to be able to say that we are going to do the things that the law tells us that we have to do. So that's partly why these are goals, and have been goals in some shape or form since 1969. So, you know, this is language that's pretty much straight out of various laws pertaining to housing.
So we're safe, quote unquote, meaning we're checking that box. And since we're using these words that you've written down here, they would be happy with that, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So some of the things that I'm seeing, so I guess going back, like, you know, the DE and I'm seeing goal H4. I'm also seeing H2, H3, and H3 can be put in together. I mean, is that not going to work? Or, I mean, I guess I'm a little confused.
I think that's more of a discussion item.
Okay.
And
so there's no
rather than a
like
clarifying question. Yeah, we're trying to take clarifying questions first.
Okay.
And Christine, I will just point out that the goals numbered with the H's are the existing goals, and the ones
Right,
that just have numbers are the ones we're discussing tonight.
Right, and I'm just using them as to show how they're connected, or if they could be easily, because it's easy and it's already written down in our old one, right? So let me ask you this question, Diana. The old one that we had that we're working on now, that we're actually presently using, do you think, I mean, this was sufficient for before? So if we just updated it, would it be sufficient, with a couple of these things here? But could we, in theory, use the old one and then update it as a guide?
Yeah,
Use
sure.
it as a guide.
Yes.
Okay.
In the case of 4 is a reuse of an old one that we should have in here. 5 is the new one that we have to have in here because it is specific to AFFH law.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I don't see any other hands up for questions at this time. And remember, after we take public comment, we will discuss. Okay, so it's time for public comment on this particular agenda item. If you have a public comment, please use your raise hand feature. And public comment is for 3 minutes. So Sarah, do we have any public comment?
Grace Dixon is in the meeting.
Great.
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you for all of your hard work.
Hi, Grace.
Hi. So I know that
I think you're cutting out.
So let me know if I'm going in the right or wrong direction here. Since there are about 2,000 units downtown and we've approved another 988, and then we are looking to plan for another 2,114, that's over 100% plus increase in the units downtown. So, and it makes sense that it's going downtown, and I live downtown. But what my concern or question or comment is, at what point in this goal setting are we discussing the quality of life of these new and existing residents? So for instance, my main purpose is just that these new residents have access to recreation, green space, and parks within a quarter mile of where they live. And I didn't see that verbiage anywhere in the goals. I saw Parks and Recreation mentioned once, but it was under height and density, which I didn't quite understand why Parks was there. So at any rate, I just want to make sure that in the planning process, especially because we're talking about goals and aspirational goals, that we're looking after the quality of life of these new residents and our existing residents when we're increasing the units by over 100% downtown potentially.
Sarah, can I make a clarifying?
That was it.
Can I make a clarifying comment about that? I just want to, this is an issue that's come up before. The general plan is a series of several elements like the housing element. There's land use, there's circulation, there's safety, there's growth management, there's open space and conservation, et cetera. All of those elements will receive additional review and be worked on by this body. They all work together in sort of an important web, so that the housing element is going to maybe reference some things that end up in the land use element or in open space and conservation, et cetera, but not everything goes into the housing element. So there will be opportunities for us to discuss ways in which things in the housing element will trigger the need for changes in other elements. So this is not, this one product that we're working on is the only one that has specific legal requirements that we have to follow. And that's what we're trying to do. So some of these things might end up, of course, references to open space and recreation, et cetera. And we'll make sure that there are linkages from the housing element to other elements to address those very issues. But it isn't all going to show up in the housing element because it can't. It needs to be spread amongst these other elements of the general plan. So that's the whole as the whole process proceeds. Each one of the only reason we're doing this one first is because it has a legal time commitment to it that we cannot change. So that at least explains how this all works with other things like quality of life issues, et cetera.
Thank you for explaining it. And yeah, as long as it's the housing isn't planned and there's still space left for green space and recreation. So I appreciate your explanation.
Thanks, Grace. Thank you, Diana, for that explanation. Do we have more public comment?
Gary is in the meeting now.
All right.
Of course you do. I just want to say that listening to you all talk is so much fun. It's such great questions, really insightful commentary. I think coming from everyone, I've missed this. There are 2 items in the draft housing element goals, and I only got to look at this document like half an hour before the meeting, so I haven't thought too much about it, but 2 items, item 6 and item 7, that start with the phrase work toward. And I don't totally understand why they start with work toward instead of just the active verb that follows, expand the city's housing inventory, remove barriers to accessing affordable housing. I understand that housing can be pretty controversial, and a lot of these ideas are complicated, wrapped up in a lot of complex values. But value 6 is, as written, saying that we are going to try to make it so that we can accommodate a variety of housing types that are attractive and affordable to potential renters and home buyers at a range of income levels. It's the next part of the statement, the part that's about who we are trying to help, our renters and home buyers at a range of incomes, that really makes it like, if we're just going to try doing that, then we're not really being very aspirational. We should, in our aspirations, say, we're going to do this because we want people of all income levels and to be able to afford to rent or buy a home in Lafayette. I think most people want that. And I think it's really the same thing for item 7, that if you look at the first 3 phrases, the first 3 words, barriers to access affordable housing. Sorry, that's not the first 3 words. That's the first few words. It can be like, okay, what are they talking about? I think people sometimes are skeptical of affordable housing. They worry about what it's going to do to a community. But we're talking about creating affordable housing opportunities for persons with special housing needs, such as seniors, developmentally disabled, et cetera, et cetera. These are, it's the people. And if we're aspiring to try and help them, then we're not really aspiring to anything. We should be aspiring to help them, which means we will try. The work toward at the beginning of both of those really weakens it. So I know I'm hammering this home, but I think our words really matter here. And like I said, I didn't get time to work through this as much as I would have liked. So I'll leave you to the rest of your evenings. Thank you for all the work you do. I'm excited to hear the discussion afterward. Bye.
David Clark has his hand raised. I'll promote him to panelist.
Hi, this is awkward because I'm really trying to ask a question and the format's not really set up to ask a question. So I'll make an observation, but on the chart, I want to follow up on a couple of committee members' questions about how to interpret the chart. But on the last item on page 2, it's the category is safety and regulatory compliance. And under the state mandated column, this is checked yes. And then there are 2 old goals. The old goal, at least I think, 2 existing goals, an H1 and an H5. If you look at those 2, H5 is almost word for word what our draft goal number 10 is. In fact, it is word for word what that is, up through state law. And then after that, we have to work towards another Jeremy observation. But anyway, to work towards the rest of that, the remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the rest of the remaining 8 words apparently encompass the entire goal of H1, which was a required goal. Am I reading that right? Because what's included in H1 is the word semi-rural, which I realize is a triggered term, but I don't think semi-rural was mandated by state law. So I'm kind of not following how the pieces flow in terms of how we got to the draft goals from the existing goals, if that makes sense. So I guess that's my observation, but that is my observation. So thank you.
Thanks, David. That's a good question, and I'm sure a committee member will bring it up for discussion afterward.
Libby Henry is will be joining as a panelist.
Hi. A couple of things, and I'm sorry if I'm not being very clear. First of all, in regard to previous speakers' comments about, aspirations and such, Lafayette already has several facilities, affordable housing for seniors, for example, for people with disabilities, mental disabilities and physical disabilities. So those aren't really aspirations. We already have done some of that. And the last of which is the Belle Terre that was apparently the last project that Lafayette collaborated with other partners to build. And now we don't have any money to do so. And that's something that people need to keep in mind, that, and I know that somebody said earlier in the discussion that we, as in the city of Lafayette, don't build anything. But I'm thinking, is there, and I don't know if this can be part of the general plan or not, but in regard to
the mandates and such, is there a pathway to, or some way that Lafayette can acquire funds to do that affordable housing building? Because we can't, our hands are tied as far as what we can require of the developers. They want to build 20 units, and if they make 2 lousy units affordable, they get whatever they want. And, that's obviously, that's not going to meet our RENA requirements either. But anyway, I just wondered if that is a part of anything that can be included in the general plan to, work. Like several of you met with Wei Tai, and he was talking about that general idea, I believe. And also, I wanted to ask Diana, maybe, you keep saying about the state law. Can you be more specific of what state law says that we have to, I understood that we have to, according to state law, make available space for the 2,114 units to be built. But am I off track here as far as, I'm not sure what state law you were quoting earlier.
Housing element state law. It's been on the books and has changed many times since 1969. And it provides specific direction to cities about what has to be included in the housing element. And so that's the state law that I'm referencing.
Okay, and where could I find that? You mentioned AFFH?
Yes, that's affirmatively furthering fair housing. It's a new law that went into effect that affects the housing element. And it's basically a fair housing program to ensure that areas where there may be pockets of poverty do not have further concentrations of poverty, et cetera. Okay. And that's now part of the housing element law too.
But if we don't build the housing elements, if we don't have the money to do that, then how can we impose that on the developers? You understand what I'm saying? Trying to get it?
This is a housing plan. There's no imposition specifically on developers in this plan. It's planning for housing if developers want to build housing.
Right. But so we as a city, we can only say 15% affordable, right? Up to 15% affordable.
Through the chair, Libby's 3 minutes have expired.
Okay. Sorry, Libby, we're at our limit, but thank you very much for calling in and giving us your.
I wish Diana would answer the last question, but okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
All right, well, we'll take the meeting back to a discussion among the committee. Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, make a statement. Boy,
and I think
Matt and Jim are neck and neck. So
you're doing a great job.
I'll have age go before beauty. Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, Matt, I think you got age and looks all over me. All I was just going to say is that just to suggest maybe just march through this thing and start off at the top row of the matrix, infrastructure, and work our way down. There may be some topics for which we have an extensive conversation. Others maybe could get done in a minute. So maybe and then at the end we could say, okay, we've kind of gone through it all, and then take the vote. That was my one grand suggestion here. Thanks.
Great. Good idea. Got Matt and Carol and Mayor Candell. All right, Matt.
Is this a place where you want us to make suggestions, Chair Lee, or do you want to hold off on that?
I think Jim's idea is a good one. I think we should organize how we go about this.
Okay.
if you are all raising your hand to say something different than how to organize our discussion, then go ahead and ask or say. Mayor Kendall?
Took my hand down. I was
Okay.
going to item 1. Sorry.
Okay, and Carol? I think you are muted.
Are we on item 1 now?
We're going to do item 1 at Jim's suggestion, which I think is a great idea. If anybody doesn't, let me know, but why don't we start with item 1?
Well, I think that's a good idea because we may have 5 people that want to say something about item 1 rather than go all over the place. So
Okay.
I'll go back to my original use of the word demands, because the of covers housing development and future residents. So that funding mechanisms that support the demands of future residents. It says, I don't know what the demand, I think needs, to me is a better word. Not, I don't know what the demands of housing development as such are. It's really needs. And I certainly wouldn't want funding mechanisms to support the demands of future residents. The needs.
Okay. So Sarah or Renata or Diana, do you want to talk about why the word demands were used? Can this be changed? Do any other committee members have an idea about how this could be stated?
Well, the terminology demands is not, I think, Carol, you're using a different version of the word. The demands, new housing places demands on existing infrastructure, for example. It's not, I want something from you, like I demand this, but rather it taxes the local infrastructure. And that's, I think, what this was referencing. And future residents also put a demand on the infrastructure by needing more water, more sewage capacity, better roadways, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's the meaning of the word demand. We put demands on the system.
Well, we all see it differently, I guess. To me, it would still be needs.
Well, can't we use that word, interchangeably? So why don't we just change it to needs? To make it more clear then. Unless you make it clear that it's demands of the system, on the systems, due to housing development and future residents.
Is this, is demands like the vernacular that we should be using in the housing element?
Anna has her hand raised.
Oh,
I think she's going to comment upon that. Was I right?
Yeah. I was going to say, thanks, Anna. Demands is very common in other general plans and in housing elements. It's just like Diana was saying, I support continuing to use the word demands because you're talking about the demand of the housing development itself. It's not, you have to do this. It's, I'm not an English major. I don't know what the term is for, for that use of the word demand, but I am in support of keeping it. It's how it's presented in many, many housing elements and how it is used regularly. My other comment I was going to say, and again, this could just be semantics. Are we saying develop infrastructure systems and also achieve a viable commercial retail environment? Or are we trying to say development infrastructure systems to achieve a viable commercial / retail environment? I don't have a preference which one it is. When I was reading it, I thought it really should have said to instead of the word and. But
hasn't that been struck? That's been struck, hasn't it?
Okay, sorry, maybe I'm looking at the wrong
Yeah,
version.
look at you're not
My
looking at
bad.
the
Yeah.
newer version. That's been struck already.
Okay, then ignore that part, but I support keeping the word demand.
Oh, thank
Oh
you.
yeah, thank you. That's really helpful to have it up there. Thank you.
Great. I can't see people with their hands up, though. That's the only problem. Jim, I see
wait,
your.
This, wait, the one you're showing isn't the one I got. All right, that's not the one I picked up at the city office.
Kara, look at it should say October 13th in the lower right corner.
The one October 13th, it's the
Yeah,
one I
that's the
was
newest
given
one.
and picked up at the city office.
It's the same text as what was in the packet.
Well, mine says that support the demands of housing development and future residents. This is the one Jonathan Fox left for me yesterday to pick up. That's what it says.
Infrastructure systems.
Mine says support the
It matches now, right?
demands of housing development. Oh,
And
okay.
future residents. Okay, so we're in
All right,
line
now
now.
you got it.
Right.
All right, okay.
Okay,
So
with
you
the
had a
screen
different
up, I
one.
can't see the hands up.
I think Matt's next.
There we go. Okay,
And then
Matt,
the mayor and me.
and then the mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lee. One of the things I wanted to have considered more in both 1 and 2 is the idea that the commercial businesses in Lafayette support the residents. They provide services, goods, things like that. And having that strong commercial, vibrant downtown is important so people don't get in their cars and drive everywhere. And we need to think about it holistically. I understand Diana's point that this is a housing element and land use is kind of a separate subject. However, if we don't think about it together and holistically, we end up things like with Corporate Terrace, where we decide to take out businesses and put residential in, because right now developers make more in residentials. So I want to include on statement 1 at the end, the demands of housing development, comma, future residents, and the commercial district when we're thinking about infrastructure. I think it's all got to work together. If we don't, for example, we may start eliminating parking more frequently because residents may not need as much parking downtown, but the commercial people do, and parking is part of infrastructure. So the other piece is on statement 2, and it's the last sentence. It says the city will encourage, and I would recommend an expansion of mixed use of retail, commercial, and residential building and zoning. And the reason I want to think about that is with the distinct possibility that the BART parking lots may be developed, that may be a good place to put retail and commercial, once again, to reduce traffic and make services available to people that live in that area. So those are the 2 changes I'd like to suggest. And I promise those will be the only 2 that I'll suggest.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
You're welcome.
Can I, just to clarify, Matt, on number 1, you're suggesting adding housing development, comma, future residents and commercial, what again?
District.
And the commercial district.
You could say commercial center district. I'm not that picky about the word.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor Kendall.
Sure. Yeah, Matt, actually, I was going the same way with you on that one. And so I came up with another way. Instead of adding at the end, it says, with funding mechanisms to support the demands of housing, comma, retail and commercial development.
Sure.
That would be maybe another way of pulling all that in
Yeah, it's a little tight. It's a
holistically.
little tighter, Mayor Kendall.
And to keep residents though, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
keep
I
residents for
think
sure.
that's fine from my
And
perspective.
and to me, do you want to include something about the existing? You know, we want to support the existing and future. You know, right? We don't want to just support the future. We kind of want to make sure we don't wipe out the existing. And
Are you talking about in number 2 or number 1, Mayor?
Number one, infrastructure systems that support the demands of
Housing development and residents.
And existing and future residents. Maybe.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it lengthens it out a bit. It certainly provides more clarity. That's fine. I would support that.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, can you please repeat that? So it would be current and future residents only, or current and future housing, commercial, retail?
Yeah, we probably ought to make it generic to all of them, right?
Yeah, I think if we're going to add that, I do think it's a good suggestion, but I do think it needs to be before. So it would basically say demands of current and future.
Perfect.
Housing,
Perfect.
comma, retail, comma, commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, development.
Oh, housing, comma, go back to housing, comma, retail and commercial development. No, keep development at the end. Housing, comma.
It's hard to
And
edit
retail.
live when 20 people are talking to you. There's a lot of pressure.
It's impossible. Trust me, I know. Thank you. That might be clearer.
And residents.
And then on Matt's comment on the number 2, though, I don't agree with the and expand. I think encouraging is generic. And yes, we can expand and we probably will, but it doesn't say that we have to, right? Because we don't know if we're going to yet, right?
Well, if we could, I get your point, Mayor Kendall, but we are actually losing commercial businesses right now with the existing goals we have, okay? And I think the economic pressure of residents being more profitable for developers than commercial will potentially accelerate that. So that's why I was kind of leaning more towards expansion, so that we don't continue to reduce the size of our commercial and retail base, which is what's happening right now.
Fair.
All right, so.
And are we doing nitpicky things too, or are we just, like little words,
I
change words?
think this is, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Okay.
So.
I have a couple suggestions. One of them is if this is supposed to be a discussion, it's really hard to wait to be called on if it's timely. So how are we going to do this? Without.
Right.
So if you're bringing up a new topic, wait. And if it's on the same topic or on the same discussion, then we would just kind of pipe in, right? Is that how we're going to do this?
Yeah, if we're, right now we're talking about just infrastructure. Right. So it's only 2 paragraphs and we're just working through people's wish list for words. And it seems like it's going okay for now. So, so yeah, if people have a comment or a disagreement with a suggestion, please raise your hands.
Or you want us to wait then? Okay.
Yeah, just wait.
Okay.
If we can, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So now on my screen, I've got Anna, Jim, and Christine. I'm not sure who was first. Anna, go for it.
Sure, thanks. I am just wondering, so this is for item number 2. We say promote and encourage. Then in the next sentence, we say will encourage. Do we want to consider only using the word promote in the first sentence and then using the word encourage in the second? I'm not opposed to how it is. It just struck me as a little I don't know, odd that we'd say promote and
Repetitive?
encourage. Yeah, just, yeah, repetitive is a better word than odd. So just a thought, if we want to use promote in the first sentence and then encourage in the second, something to consider. Thanks.
All right. So, and we also have the word encourage in the second sentence, and I was thinking about combining the sentences, but it would be a very, very long sentence. And I guess this brings up a bigger issue, which is we see the word promote in a few of these goals. So I guess back to the aspirational, this is an aspirational word that the city intends to do.
Chair Lee, should we maybe just stick with promote and
yeah, I like promote
throughout the whole document?
Yeah, I think they're actually the same word, but yeah, promote would be great.
Okay, so
all
maybe
right. Jim, and then Christine, and then
Chair.
Beth.
Thank you, Chair Lee. So I think that the changes in the two paragraph in infrastructure to the good, my one nitpick is where it says develop infrastructure systems. Don't quite know what an infrastructure system is, having worked for 3 decades in that field. I would just maybe say develop infrastructure with blah, blah, blah. I mean, I think that infrastructure covers it. And everything else that we've talked about sounds great.
Thanks. I guess I was thinking that systems were all the different types of infrastructure.
But we don't deal with, so Central Sand does sewer, East Bay Mud does water. You know, it's like we deal with roads. And, you know, it's PG&E does, you know, so I kind of think just infrastructure is a broad enough term to cover it. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Okay. Any comments on that suggestion? Yay or nay? All right. So we'll take the word systems out. Sarah, are you keeping a running revision of this section that you can show us? We can see what it looks like right now.
Renata, you want to share?
Okay. I think we probably need an and before the word retail. And actually, I would move residents in front of, I mean, this is just my suggestion. Residents would come first and then housing, commercial, and retail development. Okay.
On number 2, have we decided not to encourage an increased mixed use?
Encourage mixed use retail
or an expansion?
Oh, you mean the word encourage?
Yeah, the city will encourage an expansion of mixed use.
Oh, yes.
Are we on number 1 or number 2?
Right now, I'm talking about number 2, Carol.
Okay, can we sort of stay on one at a time?
Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are 2 pieces to infrastructure. So I guess I'm looking at both as infrastructure.
I agree. It would be helpful to focus on one goal at a time so we're not jumping back and forth.
Okay. So are there any other changes that people would like to see for number 1?
Can I ask a quick question of Matt with that expansion? Can you clarify that? So Matt, can you clarify that? So right now, the area where the parking lot is not commercial. Is that what you're saying? And so we want to have the ability to expand that if necessary. Is that what you're saying?
Well, or yes. My fear is the developer will say, I just want to do housing because I make more money doing more housing. And what I'm suggesting is we would encourage the expansion of retail and commercial into that area instead of just the Mount Diablo area. That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay. So that would basically, in effect, make the downtown core longer, right?
Or wider. When you think about it.
I'd like to offer a suggestion not to include the word expansion, and the reason is because that seems like a policy that rather than a statement of a goal, i.e., one of the policies could be, and that I don't think anybody's had the opportunity to have a discussion about whether or not, a mixed use should be expanded into that area. We still haven't even discussed whether the BART station should be developed at all. So I'm concerned about putting forth an idea that actually might be more of a policy decision that we should discuss later when we get to the policies that go with each one of these goals. My 2 cents. You can take them or leave them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense.
I agree.
I agree.
Me too.
I disagree, but I will defer to the majority. Being a respecter of democracy.
And so while you're in there, can you also take out the word, so it says promote a vibrant commercial and retail downtown area that successfully meets the needs. I don't think the word successfully meets the needs, because isn't it kind of what we're trying to do anyway? So I feel like that's an unnecessary verbiage, because I don't think we would want to do unsuccessfully or maybe or possibly. I think that is repetitive. Thank you.
I agree.
Shirley, could I just ask maybe that anyone who has a radio on in the background that's kind of playing piano could turn it off? It's really distracting.
Yeah,
I know it's not me.
Yeah, I could hear somebody talking in the background.
I think Beth and Susie have been waiting to comment.
Yes. Beth, I know you've been waiting. And Susie after Beth.
Thank you. Actually, I was just prompted by an email pop-up from Town Hall Theater, and I think we should consider inserting the word cultural in section number 2, promote and encourage a vibrant commercial, cultural, and retail downtown, considering current and future activities and organizations that are expanding.
But what is a cultural downtown area? What would that be?
It would be Town Hall Theater and the Park Theater and the art galleries and Peter Pan Studio. So there's a lot of other things that draw people to a downtown, in addition to retail, in addition to restaurants, in addition to shops. The library.
About,
so the concept there is
recreation in there, though. I mean, if we're going to start a vibrant commercial, cultural, recreational, and retail, there's a big demand for downtown parks.
I think we need to focus on the category, and right now we're in infrastructure.
Well, you need infrastructure for the parks. You got to have more people coming.
And Carol, I think this is one of those opportunities that Diana was pointing to earlier, where we can create that there is a whole parks, trails, and recreation element that will be focusing on those park priorities. And so I think in the, I don't want to drive this too much, but we are pointing to infrastructure that supports the demands of current and future residents, and that can include parks, right? We can have a more specific policy or to link it to that park element. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Might I even suggest you just take out commercial, cultural, and retail and just vibrant downtown?
I think that's better. It leaves
I
it
second that.
wide
Okay.
open.
Yeah, I agree.
We're not tied to
I'm going to jump in with my
But-
comment, which
okay,
was
let
what
me
is the
jump in.
difference
Oh,
between
yes, Susie, go
commercial-
ahead.
And
If you
sorry, I was
take
going to
out-
say, what is the difference between commercial and retail, and do we need to define those? So I would agree with vibrant downtown. I do like the idea of cultural or cultural arts, but I think we can say vibrant and people can figure out what that is.
That
because
could mean
restaurants
whatever makes
and
the
other
downtown vibrant.
Yeah,
No.
whatever
I don't-
people view. I don't think we have to, it just is a lot of words, and I think some of them are getting lost.
Yeah.
Look, a vibrant downtown could be a bunch of apartment buildings.
No,
And we lose our commercial district. There's got to be a support there for the commercial and retail piece that supports retail.
But it
So,
says
Matt,
that
can I
second
ask you
sentence.
what your,
City will
what would
encourage
you
mixed use.
define?
One at a time.
Sorry, what would you define the difference between commercial and retail? What would you?
If
say
you
is
want to just say
different?
commercial, that'd be fine with me.
Okay,
Um,
because that's what I see is commercial could cover a lot of things. It could cover
That's fine.
restaurants, businesses, all of that, but I don't think we need commercial and retail.
That's
I think
fine.
that's getting nitpicky, and then we're leaving the restaurants out. Unless we
fine.
considered them commercial.
But I thought commercial was more for like businesses that weren't retail. So you have stores versus a professional building, for example, with doctors, which would be more of a commercial use.
Oh, would
Versus
you
a
consider that
retail, which would be
commercial?
a store where I went and buy a sweater or.
Right, but
or
retail is like
postcards.
is a subset of commercial.
Right,
Exactly.
that's what I think.
Anything that isn't residential is commercial.
Exactly, resident or commercial.
Well, why are you opposed to just not having a vibrant downtown and then having, because the second sentence says the city will encourage a mixed use of retail, commercial, and residential building and zoning. It already says it right there.
Because we're in the process of actually eliminating commercial and retail in support of residential. And my position is we need to have a balance between the two.
Well, couldn't that be addressed through policies that are
It hasn't
focused on
been.
each of those
It's-
sectors?
No, we're not doing it today. That's the problem, is corporate terrace is a perfect example of where we don't do that.
But I think a vibrant downtown includes restaurants and includes businesses.
Then let's put commercial in there.
But why can't we just say a vibrant downtown? I mean, I
Because
think
then
that
it'll just be
encompasses all of
residential.
it.
Then it'll just be residential.
Why?
Because
vibrant downtown-
developers make more money putting in residential than they do in commercial.
But again, can't we have policies that
Yeah,
address each of these
I agree with
sectors, like
that.
a policy
I
that
would-
promotes
I would-
commercial
I agree.
businesses?
You can have
Okay, I hope we
policy.
would, but that's not happening. That's where corporate terrace came in. We didn't do that.
But the policies would go into this housing element underneath this goal, right? The goals, policies, and programs.
It won't,
Yes.
unless we're explicit about it, it's not gonna happen.
Why do you say that, Matt? We're doing.
Because the evidence is there, Carol. We wiped out corporate terrace. We wiped out all those offices in corporate terrace for residential.
No, I'm saying we are going to put in a program or policies to prevent
Why-
that.
Fine, let's put
In
it
the
in there, but
future.
why can't we have it in both places? It's one word.
I agree.
I don't know.
I agree that if it's there, then it won't be overlooked. If it is the first sentence in a housing element goal, then it can't be overlooked.
To me, the two sentences are the same thing. It could be one sentence. Encourage the city will encourage and promote.
Well, it isn't
Vibrant.
exactly, because what the first sentence says that the city is going to promote a vibrant commercial downtown. In other words, it's going to try to attract businesses. The second sentence says, we want developers or builders who want to build downtown, we want to encourage them to build mixed-use buildings, which is also very important for a vibrant downtown.
Let's see, Ella, do you have the list if you want to share with them this evening?
Darlene, I'm just going to do a gentle time check, and also
Yeah.
that Mayor Kendall and Commissioner Radnich have their hands up.
Yes, okay, that's right. I can't see them because of the screen. Mayor Kendall, would you like to speak?
Nope, I took mine down, sorry.
Okay. Anna?
Would it make sense to combine the sentences? Promote a vibrant commercial downtown area that meets the needs of residents and visitors by encouraging a mixed use of retail, commercial, and residential building and zoning.
Sure.
Right. Or and encourage.
By.
I think by encouraging people.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Anna, for those words.
No wonder we ever got the Constitution.
Are we having an informal rule that once we move past to a goal, we can't go back? Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to finish each at a time. So are we finished with one? I hate to even say that.
I hope so.
Jeremy,
Okay.
I might suggest we just go around and make sure everyone's had a chance to weigh in
Okay.
before we close these two out.
Okay. Do you want to call roll, so to speak?
Sure. Okay. Stella, do you have anything to add?
No.
Thank you. Susie, anything to add?
I would think we have an overuse of and, so I would have of current and future residents, comma, housing, commercial, and retail development. Because we're lumping them together, but that's maybe nitpicky. I don't know. It just seems grammatically incorrect.
Mm-hmm. We do have a lot of ands.
So I think a comma could take away that and then I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Don?
Okay.
All right, Jim?
Sorry, I'm good.
Okay, Beth, any last comments?
I'd still like to see cultural put back in, otherwise it's just business and housing. And there's no place for the arts.
Okay. All right, Mike?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, Matt, any last
I'm good.
additions? Namrata?
Yeah, I'm good. I like it.
Okay, and Christine?
For now, yeah, it's okay.
Okay, and Carol?
I have a park and rec meeting going on another screen and my items come up, so I need to leave for a little bit and then I'll come back.
We'll be gone.
All right.
Okay, so with permission, we will move on to sustainability and
Oh, I
environment.
have a comment actually.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chris. Oh, I'm sorry.
In number 2, the way that it reads is that you'll promote a vibrant commercial and cultural downtown by encouraging a mixed use of retail. And so I guess I want to leave it that it would be 2 different things. We'll promote a vibrant downtown and will encourage a mixed use of retail. I know some people were in favor of putting by encouraging, but there's many ways to promote a vibrant downtown. We don't have to narrow ourselves by saying that we're going to do that by encouraging a mixed use of retail.
That's clear.
I agree.
I think you can get rid of and zoning.
Yeah, I think so too. Anybody want to keep zoning? No?
Oh, we need it. We have to keep it.
Oh,
I'd keep it.
Yeah.
I think
keep
we
it.
need to leave it.
We do too. I do too, yeah.
Oh, so you have to zone for all of this?
Yeah, because the zoning is what allows it.
Correct.
Okay, all right, great.
Well, that's my point. Zoning is what allows it. That's when we're gonna actually write the code in. But this is so basically we take this goal and write it into the zoning. Like like how do you have encourage a mixed use of zoning? Basically, we're gonna say, well, the zoning's gonna say that in downtown core, developers have to do ground floor retail, upper floor residential housing. That's the zoning. This is the direction.
Right, and that would be
I
kind of
see.
a program and implementation measure. 'Cause
What
that
if,
could
what
come
if
from
you
the school.
change,
I would say maybe use the word through zoning because that's what implements it
Yeah, that's
rather
fine.
than and zoning.
Sure.
Mhm. It's a good suggestion.
Excellent.
Okay, so any other changes? All right. Wow, we have 1 and 2 done. Should be a breeze now. All right. Sustainability.
Looks like Jim has his hands up.
Jim?
Thank you. I was just going to say there's something about this that doesn't quite read right, and I'm probably not the right person to apply English, my limited English college courses to this, but I wonder if we should say something like to promote environmental responsibility and long-term sustainability instead of through, maybe it's in or in new residential development and maybe and infrastructure. Because this is where an infrastructure could tie in. But that word through didn't quite seem right to me. Yeah,
In
so
order
Agreed.
to?
maybe in order to minimize, yeah. And then smarter people can kind of improve on all that.
Okay, you'll have to help me with whose hands are up since.
Mary Kendall?
Yeah,
Mary
I was,
Kendall? Okay.
yeah, I was trying to get to the point of, it's not just new residential development where we want to put in improvements. I mean, we should encourage this for also new commercial developments,
Mhm.
not just residential.
Mhm.
Like we should encourage, businesses to put in chargers for their employees kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't limit it to just residential.
Mhm.
I again want to remind people that this is a housing element and this
Fair.
is specific to sustainability in the environment in terms of housing. We can make
Right.
reference to it, maybe not in the goal, but in reference to it in the document and refer to other aspects of the general plan that could take the issue up for things other than the housing.
Mhm.
Got it.
Mike?
Does the city currently have a lease certification requirement for new housing development?
It's not a requirement, no.
Okay.
Susie?
So going back to what Mayor Candell was saying, which makes a lot of sense, could we just take away, so after sustainability, take away in new residential development and just go with infrastructure? Because if you take that away, it means even existing businesses can become more sustainable. If what we're trying to do is, change global climate or global climate change, if we just take away those words in new residential development and just squeeze in the infrastructure, that would apply to everything. That would apply to housing, which I know is what we're talking about right now, but it also would apply to businesses.
Sure.
So that
think-
kind of would meet our goal without being too wordy.
Right, and I think that we want to keep residential in this particular element because it is the housing element.
Oh, okay, so we do need to keep that in there. But
but we
could we
can-
take away new maybe? Because as you're saying, it doesn't have to apply to new. I mean, right now, everybody should be doing it, making changes. So maybe we just take away new.
Great. And that's not to say we can't repeat this or include
Right.
environmental and
For
other
commercial, no,
elements.
that makes sense.
Jim?
Thank you. I was just going to say, maybe looking at this again, yeah, I think that dropping the new is good. And maybe in resident development and maybe say and related infrastructure, that might tie it together better.
Perfect.
Mayor Candela, is your hand still up or up again? Perfect. Okay. I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Shall we roll call it? Knock it off?
Chair Lee, you're muted.
Okay, there's something about the wording here in order to minimize contributions. The contributions is a sort of a positive word, but what we're talking about is like a negative. So I'm wondering if the wordsmiths in the group can.
Impacts of global climate change?
Impacts, beautiful.
Impact, yeah.
Of.
Great.
Go ahead, Renata.
Okay, so we'll go around.
Oh,
Again,
one
or-
thing,
yeah.
one thing quick, guys. In order to minimize contributions to global climate change, minimize the impacts. That's minimize the, I don't know.
Maybe impacts
minimize
of,
the,
or impacts, wait.
Impacts
Sorry.
too.
yeah.
Impacts to.
Impacts too, yeah. Yeah.
Or both, of and to. Anyway, I'll stop.
Do we need to say in order to? Can't we just say promote
To
environmental
minimize.
responsibility? Yeah, and related infrastructure to minimize.
That's better.
Do we want to include something about, so this is now, we're trying to minimize the impacts. There's two stages of environmental catastrophe that we're facing. And one is to reduce the impacts like we're talking about here. And one is also to adapt once it comes. Do we want to go that far? Because we should probably start to, I'm personally starting to think about how we're going to long-term adapt to global climate change. We only have like 10 to 15 years to reduce the impacts, but then after that comes, all we're doing is adapting. And if we want to go that far, that would be a question.
And maybe I'll look to Diana, just kind of thinking forward in the programs that we would be adding and whether or not we would be needing to show progress on those within the next 8 years, and how, I don't know if HCD has any guidance on that.
Sustainability and environment as a sort of overarching goal is not a requirement of the housing element. The only requirement pertaining to that is opportunities for energy conservation, and we've expanded that to include climate change adaptation in housing stuff. So I think that maybe minimize impacts to, and we could add and resiliency or adaptability from climate change would be okay to add for this.
In response to?
From. Impacts to and adaptability from global.
Any other discussion around this?
That just makes the sentence really much more complex.
Yeah.
Like that's
lot of-
just a
lot of
lot
big
of
words.
clauses.
It does.
I
So
might
how about
suggest-
we add long-term sustainability and adaptability in residential development? So just include it up front.
And then make those all commas, maybe. Environmental responsibility, comma, long-term sustainability, and.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, should I call around for last thoughts? Anyone have? Okay, I'll go one by one. Stella?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes, I like it.
Okay, Dawn?
Yes.
Jim?
I'm good.
Mike?
Yeah.
Beth? I think I saw I'm good. Namrata?
It looks good. I like it.
Okay. Matt?
Yes.
Christine?
The word adaptability seems a little, I mean, would resiliency be a better word? I don't know. It seems a little bit, it's not reading very. Resiliency. I mean, it might be 6 of these, half dozen of another. I don't know. It just wasn't not reading really smoothly with adaptability there.
I think we could look at it either way. Resiliency, like we're, holding against it. Adaptability, like we're making changes. So I think we'd have to figure out which word we feel like we want to be able to evolve with, adapt to change. Resiliency sounds like we're kind of going against change.
Or being resilient to the challenges that we are facing, right? Well, whatever you guys want. If you like the other one better, I don't know. It just was reading a little rough.
Adaptability to me means that if, over the next 8 years or more, if things start to change, let's say we start running out of water, God forbid, that we're going to have to adapt to that problem.
So resiliency is basically your ability to recover, or your ability to quickly recover, whereas adaptability is taking steps towards recovery. I think adaptability is better, personally.
Yeah, I think that is what the city would have to do if things started to change.
So if you're waiting for me to say yes, that's fine. It works.
Okay. And Dawn, did I already call on you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Great. Anna, anything more to add?
No, looks good.
Mayor Kendall?
I'm all good. All good.
Okay, and then Chrisley.
Looks good.
Okay. Woohoo. DEI. So I think as we discussed, these are pretty much set in stone, right, Diana? They're required.
Correct.
Mayor Kendall has a hand up.
Okay, while I totally agree with that, and I agree with the whole purpose of this, the term affirmatively further fair housing, that seems like the word that's actually in the statute. Like that is the goal. Like it's that. And then all the other words in that whole paragraph, there's so many more that it seems like if we just say we will support the state mandated efforts for affirmatively furthering fair housing, then it's clear we're taking them all. Instead of just picking out, and the other one is just remove impediments to fair housing. That's removing impediments is only one part. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in there too. It's like going the commercial, retail, cultural, right, the route. And so I would be careful. It seems like we can make it broader and stronger by taking the whole thing. And that would imply all of it rather than just pieces of it. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying. Diana, do you have thoughts about that?
This is specific language from the law and specific language from the guidance that we need to do. And we have to be able to demonstrate that we're doing everything we can specifically to remove impediments to fair housing.
Plus a lot more. Like it seemed like there was a lot more stuff in there that we have to do.
In terms of what the requirements are, however, for us as a jurisdiction this is something that we have to be able to say we have done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The rest of it is, I don't think that there is a way to sort of shorten this particular aspect of the language to somehow assume that it's going to be all encompassing. But
okay, so the statute says, quote, affirmatively furthering fair housing means taking meaningful actions in addition to combating discrimination that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to opportunity based on protected characteristics. And then, I mean, so it's got it's got more stuff than just free from barriers, right? And so it seems like we're almost limiting it. But in quote, affirmatively furthering fair housing means, and we might want to include all of that, or we just say we support that, and we know legally that's what it means. Does that make sense?
I don't think so, but it's up to the GPAC to decide what it wants to do. I'm giving you my best advice about how specifically to address these issues, and specifically the guidance that we've received, which is 90 plus pages of guidance, plus a huge presentation that we received over 2 webinars. This particular language is very specific to what they expect from us. I'm giving you my best professional judgment about what needs to be included in order to pass muster. And it's up to you to decide how you want to deal with it.
John has his hand raised.
My question is, you have ability underlined and in blue. I don't understand what that means. Does that mean people have to be able to read or can't read, or what abilities are we talking about?
I think it's physical abilities, if I'm not mistaken.
And developmental.
Right. It's any disability, including developmental disability, which is a specific thing that we have to comment on and provide actions towards developmental disabilities in housing.
It's talking about physical abilities, and I realize you could maybe word it in the negative, something about disabilities. One understands ability is the opposite of disability, but you're not talking about the ability to read or some other simple thing like that. It seems rather vague for somebody coming in. That I don't think that's the first way they're going to look at that word. They're going to wonder, what are you talking about with ability?
John, are you thinking we should change this to the word disability?
Or something, a
it would either one is fine. I think people in the disability community would have a problem with it simply because it it makes it sound like they're at a negative. They're at the negative. They want to talk about how they're differently abled.
Right. No, I understand. I understand now what you're getting at. I didn't, but is there another word that speaks to that same ability, disability, the physicalness of ability? I don't think of it right off the top of my head, but this group's got great vocabulary. Maybe we'll come up with something.
Chris has her hand raised.
Oh, I was going to bring up ability and disability. So I think we have changed it to make it more understandable.
Susie?
Hey, Susie. One, I would leave it as ability. So regardless of ability, you wouldn't say disability, because I agree that's negative. So I think ability, people would understand what that meant. But my question is about the second, or number 5, that we say fair housing twice. I think we need to reword that to say something like take affirmative actions to further and remove, I guess we can't really put those together, but impediments to fair housing. Do not put it twice in the same sentence. It's redundant. So I think that one somehow we need to, and remove impediments. I mean, we already know what that is because it's already been stated. So that would be my suggestion.
Maybe remove impediments and further fair housing choice in the city.
Yeah, I think we could remove impediments. It just has to be put in an order where we're only stating fair housing once. And I wasn't quite sure about fair housing choice. Is fair housing a choice? It doesn't sound like it. Sounds like
That's the language that is required in the law.
Supposed to be used?
Yes,
Okay.
Must be used.
Government has funny language.
We can say take affirmative actions to further fair housing choice in the city and remove impediments to it.
Okay, or just even remove impediments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Either
No,
one.
I think we need to be specific. I think it needs to be to it, like Diana said.
Okay.
That sounds better.
Yeah, that's fine, just as long as we don't repeat fair housing.
Kim?
Thank you. 2 things on the line 4, we have disability. I kind of think if people in the community in that space, the preference is ability, varying abilities, or people with different abilities. I think we drop disability. If it's a negative, I think it's just be respectful and use the term of art that is appropriate. The second point is on number 5. I kind of get Mayor Kendall's comment about the bigger picture in this, but I think if this is something that clears the bar with HCD, which is what it's about, we can get into specific programs later that might be more targeted and responsive, and just leave it with the language that they accept, and we can then expand on it in programs. Thank you.
Stella?
I raised my hand just on the ability disability concept, but I do have a question. So for Diana, is this language related to like the federal equal opportunity in housing?
It's the
policy or
state
law.
It's the state FEHO, fair housing in employment or whatever. I don't know. It's state law.
Okay, so state law would say all of these things:
Yes.
race, age, gender. They would say
And
ability.
there's actually even more, but for brevity, and there are more things. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, point was just if they're saying ability, then we should just follow suit and use the term as well.
I don't actually know if ability is what. Sarah, do you know where this came from? Because I'm not exactly sure it uses ability.
I suggested it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like it was missing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? I mean, should we mention it?
Absolutely, because one of the goals and one of the requirements is to demonstrate that the city has, it recognizes, has analyzed the needs of people with variety of disabilities specifically and including developmental disabilities. So yeah, I think so. we need to say that.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised at this time. Are there any other comments on this item? Hearing none. Renata, did you want to go through a call again? Just
Wait, can I just ask a quick question? Sorry. So what is the difference between this number 4 and number 7? And I'm only saying that because we're talking about special populations where we also have developmentally disabled. That was specific. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is between special populations. I'm not quite sure how that fits in. I feel like it's sort of repeating itself.
There are two issues.
Okay.
One is fair housing and the other is housing for people with disabilities.
I see.
And so,
Okay, so
the
it's two
first
separate
one is
things.
related to fair housing issues and the second
Okay.
one is related to housing in general.
Okay, and then that would also go for the affordability one. See, that's
Right.
another one.
Mm-hmm.
And that is mandated by the state.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
okay, Renata, quickly go through calling.
Okay, Stella,
Yes.
Susie,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
John, Jim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Amrita.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that this is something, I really like this statement. I think this is something we should be striving for, whether it's in the HC code or not, HCD code or not.
Thank you. And Carol, I know you're just joining us.
Yes, yes, I'm back. Yes.
Great. All right. Shall we move on?
Excellent. Number 6. Anyone would like to start off the discussion?
I could chime in. I think Jeremy actually brought this up earlier, but I'm reading this. I think this has gotten more punch if we say, instead of work towards expanding, just maybe say expand this and blah, blah, blah. It just gives it more oomph. And the only other edit I think I'd have would be, I don't know if we want to maybe put where we say home buyers at a range of income, maybe say a wide range of income levels. That's very aspirational, but maybe put it there and see what people want to do with that. Thanks.
The city can't do or execute. In other words, we're beholden to so many other factors that city doesn't control. Our must do is to provide the upzoning, right? But the forces of economics are at play here, whether we can actually execute, which is a function of interest rates, which is a function of Federal Reserve policies, cost of equity, availability of debt, material costs, labor availability. So many factors go into the actual execution of providing affordable housing across the spectrum. We can't do, like the city cannot do it. Our only thing we can do is to have policies, zoning policies that allow for. So it is an aspirational statement by necessity because we can't do it.
Did you have suggested language or to
Go
reverse?
Go back to the original, more aspirational.
I think that's what the work toward did. We can work toward it or promote it or one of those things. Instead of a command, expand it, do it.
Exactly.
Or maybe say promote the expansion and that, something like that.
Or just say we aspire to.
Yeah. I think he wants something more concrete than aspire to.
I think work toward, you could say promote the expansion of the city's housing inventory, except that's kind of wordy.
Well, we have been using the word promote.
That's true.
Yeah, that's good. That's a
Yeah,
good point. Promote would be good.
we've used it 3 times already.
Well, we're good at it.
Yeah.
That's what this
Promote-
whole
we're
thing is.
promoting.
It's only a promotion.
My recommendation is to say, promote the expansion of the city's housing inventory to accommodate a variety of housing types.
Right.
Oh, yes, to accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. What does attractive mean?
Means
They look good? Or what does that mean?
People want to buy or rent.
Because they look nice? Is that what that means?
That are appealing.
I think
attractive means
attractive
appealing.
has many different meanings, right? It could be attractive by the way it's financed. It could be attractive the way it looks. You know, there's many different things that could be, which is good. It's a little general.
Okay.
Please word.
We use language like that later on in number 8.
I like this.
Any other discussion before we, Renata, you want to do a roll call?
Sure. Stella, any additions? Nope. Jim?
No.
Any additions, Jim?
No.
Don?
Yes.
Susie?
No.
Oh, now we're saying no. Okay.
Are you
No
okay with
additions,
it,
no
Dawn
additions.
and Susie? Okay, sorry. I'll be more clear. Beth, how do you feel about the statement? Do you agree with the statement? Beth, anything to add?
Yes, I agree with this statement.
Okay. Matt?
It's good.
All right, Christine?
Looks good.
Thank you. Namrata? Okay.
It looks good. My Wi-Fi is a little spotty though.
Okay. And Carol?
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm good.
And then Chris, I think you might be last. Did I miss anything?
You know, I'm just looking at that word attractive and I'm thinking it's sort of like a value judgment, or it's in the eye of the beholder. Is there a reason why we have to say that they're attractive, or is there, because it's going into sort of a sales pitch mode with that word.
I think just historically speaking, aesthetics have been pretty important to the city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I also think it's important too that, you know, that they know that we'll make our best efforts to get affordable housing in, and that we're also going to make them nice, right? We're going to try to keep them at a high level of quality, which I think means attractive, right?
Someone's practicing piano.
Y'all can clap after his lesson. You'll be happy. Hopefully he's doing a good job.
So I know why that's there. And I guess I like this statement so much that I'm willing to. Anyway, it's a way of saying that affordable housing can also look good.
That's why the of the pretty condominium is there.
That's right. With that uplighting.
And I'm sorry, I think I skipped Commissioner Radnich.
I think it looks great.
Right, and Mayor Kendall. No additions? Okay. All right. Special populations.
Three more. Okay. Mayor Kendall.
Hey, so same thing on this one is work towards removing barriers. So I see that number 4 is our federal requirement that we promote housing opportunities for all persons, right? And it just seems like removing barriers to accessing, it's like, I'd rather promote opportunities for them. I think removing barriers may not be enough, right? You need to get all the way, you need to actually get them into them. And it seems like promoting housing opportunities for them encompasses all of that. And it seems stronger to me than just you remove some barriers. It still doesn't mean they're going to get there. Because you haven't promoted it, you haven't actually provided it for them. I don't know. I just have a hard time with the removing barriers. I don't think it's strong enough. I don't think it encompasses the whole opportunity that we can provide. I guess that's how I would say that.
So the removing barriers piece was a GPAC member comment and I think if I remember correctly, the explanation being that providing the opportunity isn't enough if there are still barriers in place. So I'll just put that out there as the feedback we got.
I get that. So do we put both in then or something? Maybe we put them both then. It seems like we're not getting the whole picture in either case, right?
Well, what does it mean? Remove barriers.
Exactly. To me,
so
that's
I have bad credit, so I can't get a loan.
Right.
Okay, so that's a barrier, right?
Right. I don't. Me too. I struggle. What is right? What are these things that we're trying to do? I struggle with that too, Carol. I don't know what it means.
Well, who removes it too? The developer, or who removes these barriers?
Right.
The barriers are the ones that we have control over. So it's anything the city would be that would be considered an impediment to allowing for development. Diana, do you have an example of such a?
But isn't that already kind of part of the law anyway? Why? I mean, actually, H3 expand affordable housing opportunities. I mean, that's why is that not adequate?
We have to discuss specifically special needs populations, and there are homeless people who have barriers to housing because, for example, if there is a requirement that they are sober in order to get housing, that's a barrier to housing. So we have to be cognizant that there may be ways in which local zoning codes and other requirements, like for group homes, may be a barrier to people with special needs. And that's why we specifically have to do this one. This one is a requirement.
So can we put both in then? I guess if
I'm sorry.
Can we add both? Can we have it like it is here, promote affordable and remove barriers? Is that better?
I think it's there, right? Promote affordable housing and opportunities and remove barriers.
We just added that, right? Yeah. So that's
I think
better.
that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, that's better. Okay, cool. All right.
And I think this will speak nicely to our AARP, Lafayette being a age certified city, or it speaks nicely to towards seniors. Senior housing.
Susie?
So I would have removed barriers too, but I see that we have to have it there. But the list then that we go on to say, so we're developmentally disabled, so we're being very specific there rather than just disabled. Is that something? Is this list something that is also mandated? Because the other one I'm confused by is large households.
Yes, these are all mandated aspects in the housing element that we must talk on in terms of the needs, as well as providing programs to address them specifically.
Okay, I was wondering at the wording. So the large households, that seems odd to me. So that's not multi-generational or something. We're just calling them large.
Large households, yes.
Okay.
So can that be like a group of kids that are just out of college?
What do you mean?
Well, what is a large household?
The federal definition is 5 persons or more.
Oh, there is a definition. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I would go back to the beginning where it says work towards removing barriers. I think we say promote affordable housing opportunities and work towards removing barriers. Keep it aspirational for both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Carol's getting tired, so Anna.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's a 2-meeting night.
Yes.
Okay, 2 things. So my hand went up a while ago, so we might have already passed this, but I was going to suggest when we're talking about removing barriers in that phrase, what if we said promote access to affordable housing and opportunities for persons with special housing needs, such as, so that way we get rid of the whole and work towards removing barriers. What if we just said promote access to affordable housing opportunities? Yeah, like that.
Okay.
Just a thought to kind of clean it up. And then this is a question for Diana. Is just so I understand, developmentally disabled, does that mean does that also encompass physically, or is developmentally specifically one of those phrases you were speaking about, that we should use that phrase? And by using that one only, are we, do we need to also make a separate comma physically disabled, or do you feel in your professional opinion that developmentally disabled captures the intent?
I think saying special needs, such as seniors, I think special needs includes physically disabled.
Oh, these
but
are just
developmentally
examples of
disabled is a category that must be included in the housing element.
Perfect.
And it includes like people with cerebral palsy, people with Down syndrome, all the like really severe autism, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Don.
I know some of my senior friends don't like the word seniors, but I don't find any conflict with it. But is there another synonym that says the same thing?
Well, originally we had used elderly, and that is out of favor, and the law specifically says seniors.
Okay, as long as the law, it doesn't bother me. But I do think this one is somewhat like what Mike was saying. The economics of life are going to govern here rather than any of these other things.
I don't see any other hands raised at this point.
Diana, you said we had to talk about barriers, so is this okay the way it is now?
I think it's fine because we can talk about a policy to address this particular goal. I'm not worried about that so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Shall we call out?
Yep. All right, Stella?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Amrita?
Looks good.
Mike?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Commissioner Radnich?
Yes.
And Mayor Kendall?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Now on to height and density. Jim is ready.
So I'm going to suggest that we really reword this, because the way I read it, it doesn't speak to height and density at all. This really kind of picks up the prior topic area. And so I thought I'd just throw out some verbiage and see how folks respond to it. So maybe just with a couple of spaces, let me just read it out. if you're ready. Facilitate a mix of housing types with appropriate density and height limitations for the subject neighborhood. And this then speaks to height and density. And what I'm trying to do is be sensitive to the different neighborhoods or communities that make up the city. You wouldn't put up, I don't know, a 5-story building in Upper Happy Valley, I don't think. Whereas something with greater density would work in the downtown. So you have different parts of the city, they have different zoning. And so there's certain things that are appropriate in that. And so I think that's one way to get at that. I think it also gets to what was in the original goal H1, but just it kind of acknowledges that they're different neighborhoods and they have their kind of a different sort of density and height limitations. So that's my suggestion. And then we would junk the rest of it because I think we deal with what was there originally in the prior component, number 7.
I agree with that.
Yep.
Jim, the only thing I was thinking about is, do we want to tack on the piece that says and affordable to diversity of ages, incomes, household types, because it's explaining to people that the reason we're looking at density and height is to improve the affordability and the diversity. That was my only thought, is it gives context of why we are considering density and height in certain neighborhoods.
I think that's a fair point.
I'm not trying to complicate it too much.
Yeah, just trying to think of it.
I don't want to have a big battle over it, but I don't know, I'm just trying to give context, that's all.
Okay.
I think Matt's right, because we really do need a reason why we would be doing that. But also, could that be one of the policies, meaning the way we get to the mix of housing types is through density and height? Is that one required by law? No, it's not, right?
No, that's what I was gonna say.
I mean, I like having it there because it really explains what's going on, but I don't know if that, because that is one of the ways we can get the affordable housing, right? So that is one of our, wouldn't that be one of the, I guess that's a policy, right? I mean, why is it separate? How did that occur?
I think the statement, the modified statement, is good because this is specifically about height and density. And I think the other policies that will flow from it as it relates to diversity of ages, income, etc., we capture that in the other sections.
Okay, I'm fine with Jim's statement.
But I like Matt, though, the way he said it, though. It does give a reader the context and why we're doing it. So I think it's important to keep it in.
But the why is answered here by saying that we are going to provide different height and density that is appropriate to the neighborhood. And then there's the and. The and is that there will be other policy statements which will stipulate certain percentage of affordable housing, ADA accessibility requirements, etc. It's all captured.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through how you could feather in you do greater density to promote affordable housing, like Belterre is its size because that's kind of what works. Belterre works in the downtown. Would you build Belterre in Happy Valley? Don't think so. So just trying to think of how I get the concept. I mean, maybe it's a program where it would be like we do this, we have density bonuses if you have affordable housing. So,
it could potentially be, Jim, a policy. So
yeah.
I personally think this is fine the way it is, and then these sort of nuances of the density by different housing types and the needs for affordability can be addressed through a program and a policy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Missy?
Okay, so if we're gonna change it, that's great. Otherwise, I'd like to change where it says affordable to diversity. It should be to a diverse, to diverse ages, incomes, blah, 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 not to a diversity. It sounds odd. But if we're keeping the other one, I'm totally good with that one too.
I guess I was thinking of just eliminating that second sentence altogether.
Yeah, and I'm good with that too. I
'Cause we-
actually really like the first sentence.
Yeah, because that
The diversity, you know, it's a word that's overused, but in this, I would either say diverse or I would stick with the first one. I think it really sums up everything nicely.
That's good.
How about if we put appropriate at the end of limitations? So facilitate a mix of housing types with density and height limitations appropriate for the subject neighborhood.
I think that works.
Anna has her hands raised.
We want to add and zoning at the end. We don't have to. I just feel like there was one of the items earlier on had and zoning. Item 2. I don't remember now if we even left it in or not, but just to try to help Jim, what you were talking about of how it would, something appropriate for that neighborhood. Just another way of thinking about it, but I'm not married to that idea. I like how it's written right now. Just a idea.
I think the zoning thing could also be a policy.
Okay, perfect. That's I appreciate that opinion. I'm good how it's.
I would take out, Sarah, I would take out appropriate density.
Right, just drop
The word appropriate, take the word appropriate out there and say with density and height limitations appropriate for the subject neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see any other hands raised. Renata, you want to do roll call?
Sure. Stella?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Namrata?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
And Commissioner Radnich?
Yes.
And Mayor Kendall?
Yes.
Great. Doing great, everybody. Number 9, design aesthetics.
We're almost there.
There's appropriate again.
Go ahead, Jim.
Jim's back.
So in this one, I was going to suggest maybe dropping some language. Maybe we just put a couple of brackets in so people can take a look at it. Where it says appropriate households with a variety of lifestyles and preferences. I have really no idea what that means. So maybe we put just a bracket where, starting with a variety of lifestyles and preferences, and see if that people want to keep that or not. And then further down, we talk about distinct community character, including quality design, and I would say comma, scale, comma, and preservation of natural features.
So just to explain the variety of lifestyles and preferences.
Yeah.
So I think speaking to that is kind of, do you want to be downtown in a townhome? Do you want to be in a single family residence? Do you want a yard? Do you not want to be in, or do you want to have a park near you rather than a yard? Those kinds of lifestyle trade-offs. It's my interpretation.
Yeah, I get that. Maybe there's another way of phrasing it.
I have an option that I'd like to share. Facilitate the provision of a wide variety of housing types appropriate for a broad range of lifestyles and preferences while balancing valued aspects of the existing community character, blah, 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 blah.
I'm not sure
A broad range of, don't use variety again. Broad, I'm really good at the, let me just say that One of my clients told me many years ago that she said, I breathlessly await your brilliant word stylings, which was a kind of code for you're so good at BS kind of thing. But anyway.
So that's the mark of a successful consultant.
I know, right?
Could we maybe broad range of needs as opposed to lifestyle and preferences?
That's fine. I'm open.
Because I'm with Jim. Lifestyles and preferences sounds like something off reality TV. And so needs, I think, captures it a little bit more succinctly.
Izzy?
Okay, great. I want to go with that with Matt. I totally agree, but maybe instead of needs, choices, because it is a choice to live where you want to live. So,
Yeah.
But I like that idea of taking away the other, because it does sound
Sure.
like I read it differently. I thought we were talking about something else.
Okay, that's fine with me.
I don't see any other hands raised.
I'm thinking about it for a
Oh,
Chris, go ahead.
so close.
I'm focusing on the words facilitate the provision of, because we were moving away from facilitate to promote. And again, the provision of it sounds like we're providing the housing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, good catch.
Promote.
Promote a wide variety of housing types, appropriate for a broad range. I don't know if appropriate is even the right word. I would just take out appropriate. A wide variety of housing types for a broad range of choices.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
choices
balance.
needs a descriptor, or needs something.
Yeah, it's starting to lose its meaning.
But a variety of housing types is a broad range.
Right.
Of choices.
While balancing valued aspects.
May I suggest promote a wide variety of housing types that balance valued aspects of the existing community character, etc.
Say that again, Renata. Speak up.
Promote a wide variety of housing types that balance valued aspects of the existing community character.
Yeah, I like that better. That balance. Yeah.
Me too.
Now, yes. Aspects.
It's good.
Including quality,
Yeah.
design,
Excellent.
scale. All design, scale, and preservation. Yes. I like that much better.
Friendly amendment, put a comma after the word character.
Existing.
Reading. Include character, comma, including quality, design, scale, and preservation of natural features.
Okay, shall we do a roll call?
Okay.
Yes, please. Stella?
Yep.
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Namrata?
Yep.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Radnich?
Yes.
And Mayor Kendall.
Yes.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Final
last
piece.
last one. Anyone want to start the conversation? Go ahead, Jim.
Just real quick, I guess I'm just not in love with the work towards thing, but if you guys want to keep it, that's fine with me.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of motherhood and apple pie. It's like we're going to be compliant.
But we can't meet the needs of everybody. Like this is a statement. We will have to be a little bit aspirational, right? I mean, I'd love to meet the needs of everybody.
Could we just say adopt and implement a housing element that is compliant with state law?
Period.
Period.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to do that.
If you want to do more, you might say to address the needs of all sectors of the community. Maybe not to meet them, but address them. Although I think this would be fine as a shortened version too.
Do we need to specify all sectors? Can't we just refer to our community as a whole?
Community.
Maybe
Well,
state law.
The idea here is this is sort of a catch-all for things like we're going to when we have policies and programs that we're going to keep. The inventory will be, what's the word I want? We'll keep meeting the no net loss provisions. We will do these things that require us to, report on what we've done for people with developmental disabilities, et cetera, et cetera. And that's more, it's fine to do it shorter, but I think a little bit longer would be great.
Okay, what was the word before address? What if we use support, or was that the word that was already there? So to support the needs of all sectors of the community, to address the needs.
To work
I will
toward
defer,
meet-
to the group and Diana on this one.
Say while working
I'm a little
towards.
bit agnostic on this one.
I could see while working towards meeting the needs.
I say keep it simple.
And meets the needs of all sectors.
But we can't meet the needs.
No, we can't.
Maybe we're better off just going with a short and sweet one, which is drop the period after state law. And, that's all we kind of need to do, because all the other stuff has been directed towards that last component.
I agree.
I agree.
But what I don't understand is at the time that this goal comes out, our housing element is adopted and it has to be in compliance with the law. So I don't understand how this is a goal or why it's a goal.
Because we need to make a proactive statement that says we will comply with law, basically.
Okay. That our health
And then
housing element will.
through this, we have a number of policies that we can have in place, including and programs like we're going to look at our inventory of sites every year and do X, Y, and Z and make sure we comply and yada, 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 yada. So
okay, perfect.
It's fine. It's fine to me to be short. It's okay.
Dawn?
Does this open us up to lawsuits from states or other people? The fact that if we aren't or they can prove that we haven't done this, therefore we are subject to punishment?
Yes.
We would already be, regardless if we had this goal in here or not. This is at least a statement that says we're going to do our best to comply.
This doesn't say we're going to do our best. I'd be very favorable. We'll say we'll do our best. This says we adapt.
We do legally. We have to adopt and implement a housing element that complies with state law.
We can't say we're going to do our best to adapt.
No, not in this case. No.
No.
This language is now exactly the same as what we had before. It's a check the box item, I think.
Okay.
Exactly the same.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I do a quick roll call on that?
Sure thing. Stella,
Yes.
Susie, Dawn,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Amrita,
Yes.
Mike,
Yeah.
Commissioner Radnich,
Yes.
and Mayor Kendall.
Yes.
Good job, everybody.
All right.
Yay.
So Chair Lee,
Yes.
so since we are now in double overtime, I move that we approve the housing goals, housing element goals as modified in our meeting.
Who would like to second?
I would.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, we can. All right. And Stella Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Izzy Kelly,
Yes.
Don Jenkins.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not so sure. Okay. Jim Cervantes,
Yes.
Beth Needle,
Yes.
Matt Pease,
Yes.
Carol Singer,
Yes.
Chris Lee,
Yes.
Christine Rasmussen,
Yes.
and Martha Castellanti,
Yes.
Mike Kim.
Yes.
All right. I think that's everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. That was the first time that we've worked that closely as a committee, and I have to say I really enjoyed it.
Glad everyone spoke up.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So we're ready to move to our second part 2 of the staff report, and same process all over.
So
We
here's
do
the
questions. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to, let's just talk, it's 8:45. I think the criteria, I looked at them, I think I'm good with it, but to the extent that people want to have an extensive conversation on that, I'm not sure. I think we've kind of run the clock out.
Yes.
Or else I think we could be here till 10, which I know for the mayor is nothing. It's a short council meeting, but I don't know. I just want to make sure if people really want to have an in-depth conversation, it's going to go on.
So we would have to bump this to the October 19th meeting.
Is quite full already. And also we aren't necessarily able to continue with the items on the October 19th meeting until we have the criteria established.
Okay.
Jim, if I might add, I wonder if we could kind of go around and get a temperature. I read the criteria and I actually think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've got a lot of issues with it. If others feel the same, we could get through this pretty quickly. If we feel like it's going to require a healthy debate, then we've got to make a decision.
We can forego the staff presentation and just put up the criteria if everyone's comfortable with that.
Yeah.
How long is the staff presentation, Sarah, would you say?
No, we can skip it.
Okay.
But it's only a couple of slides, but I think we can skip it. And if you have questions, we can answer them.
Okay.
Well, maybe the public would like to see it.
Right.
And I would like to see it, to be honest with you.
Good
In case you have any questions.
Yeah, I'd like to be sure it's the same that I've got.
So one other possible option would be to start the other meeting, the 19th meeting earlier. I don't know if everyone's comfortable with that, but personally, I would rather just power through it if we think we can. But
I would say put up a presentation.
Okay. Go ahead, Renata.
Okay.
All right. I'd just like to, sorry, before you start, I'd just like to say that I still have homework and stuff, so I think I'll have to step out at this point, if that's okay.
I think
that's okay. We'll miss you.
Thank you very much for your extended participation tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So thank you all for sticking around. So as we've covered multiple times by now, but just to reiterate, we have the goals, which are the broader aspirational piece of the housing element, and all elements, really. They will all have goals, policies, and programs. And we're specifically going to be moving forward speaking to programs. And so these are the implementation mechanisms these are the specifics of how our goals get done. And so they need to be measurable, attainable, and relevant to the goal. And they, as we've discussed, include who's responsible for implementation, what they're responsible to do, and when they have to do it. And so we're going to be developing these programs using these criteria. So we want to kind of have a means by which to assess that each possible program to make sure, you know, we're being consistent, we're covering all of our bases. So once we establish these criteria, you as GPAC members will be using them. So we'll put out a packet with the proposed programs. Some of them will be retained from the past housing element. Some of them will be additions to meet new state law or in response to GPAC or community comments, just like the goals. But so you'll be using this criteria to value them on your own. And in the case of a commission member, you'd be going to your commission with those programs and seeking out feedback. And you can use these criteria as a guide for assessment. So kind of to guide the conversation. So while we encourage you to use each of these criteria to assess a program with each of these criteria, no single criteria should be disqualifying. Their responses to the criteria should be taken in aggregate. And so if there are, in reviewing a program with these criteria, specific concerns or comments arise, you can take note of them and bring them to the full GPAC at the meeting for discussion. And we can address them together and kind of like we did with the goals, work through them to find meaningful and realistic and measurable goals or programs to put in. And then again, we'll discuss as a group. So here's a list of the proposed criteria that we had sent out in the packet, and it seems most of you have reviewed. So there is one suggestion from staff with regards to the mission statement, number 2, that criteria. We would suggest, because we are in process of updating the mission statement, that since developing the programs will be a month-long endeavor, hopefully we can have something closer to an updated mission statement by that time, and we could review all of the programs in that last meeting where we're doing a comprehensive review against the mission statement. So that would be our recommendation. It's just something to keep in mind, just one more aspect. But this example was in the staff report just to kind of illustrate how you might use these criteria. So we use an existing program to walk through how it might be implemented. And in this case, yes, it was included in the housing element based on these criteria, though not all answers were yes, right? So we want to check with the GPAC tonight that the criteria questions are adequate, whether any should be removed, anything should be added, and we would love a vote to finalize this criteria.
Okay. So to the committee, do you have any questions about Renata's presentation? Matt and Jim have their hand up.
Quick question, good presentation. On number 2, do you want that to read, does the program align with the city vision and mission? Or did you single out mission just for itself?
It was not, I don't think, a specific omission to exclude the vision. So we're happy to include that as well.
Okay, when we get to that point, I'd like to just include vision and mission because I think it's important to have both.
All right.
That's all.
How about the values, no? Also?
I would say no, Carol. If you're asking me the question, I'd say no, because the values are static of characteristics of the city. That's just my opinion, for what it's worth.
Tim, did you have a question?
Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah,
Heard to me.
So I was going to say, I thought that the good presentation, the write-up and the staff report was, I thought, quite clear. I really appreciate the example of how you'd apply the criteria to a case. So it's a series of filters, if you will. I honestly couldn't think of anything I'd want to add to it. Matt touched on the mission statement part because we're sort of in the process of that. But I thought really everything else made sense. So I honestly don't have anything to add to it or subtract for that matter.
Other questions before we go to public comment?
It's like Carol has her hand raised.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. Yeah, well, you took care of the mission statement. I had one on 5. Is there public support? How do we know? I mean, what criteria are we using to weigh the public support?
I think that's something for the committee to decipher.
Well, I mean, what can we use?
We've received significant public comment as well as participation on engagement HQ activities. And so if there is a specific item that's relevant to our housing element goals and subsequent programs that someone has brought up in the past, that could be considered public support. Also, we will be publishing the programs ahead of GPAC meetings and will likely receive public comment that you will also have the chance to review and use in your deliberation.
Okay, do we use any past studies that have been done and approved, like the DSP or anything? Or
that could be part of your deliberations.
But which ones? I mean, we have the more track study. I mean, there's a lot of things. Who decides what we use, or doesn't it matter?
Well, I think that this group would decide, but so there's maybe two avenues you could go. You could eliminate this because it's too general and too broad, or you could define it a little bit further. I think probably keeping it open and general and using your best discretion and judgment as it comes in might be helpful for the group. And I might also suggest that, this is sort of it's a process, right? So as we're going through the programs and we start evaluating them with these criteria, if we decide that we don't like one or we want to change it, then that's also a discussion for the group. So it's not necessarily set in stone, but it gives us a good guiding set of guiding criteria.
Well, I like it. I just wondered which public support we weigh. Okay.
I think each one of us will likely apply a different lens to it. I guess the idea is, as a committee, you end up with a broader perspective and you get a broader swath of what the public might view as valuable. And there are different resources to get at that, I suppose, beyond just talking to people or feedback and commentary. I mean, we did that survey on values back in July. There's another survey out now regarding the ARPA money. So there maybe, and that asks different questions too. So I think we'll all come up with different things that collectively we hopefully get a good read on what public support is for something. It's very qualitative.
Well, but I still did have a question, like the downtown specific plan. Do we just ignore it?
Certainly not. I think it's definitely an existing document that is still in full effect. And so we can use that as evidence for why we might have chosen to include something or not. I don't see any other GPAC hands raised. Shirley, would you like to open the public comment period?
Yes, let's open this agenda item up to public comment. Public comment is 3 minutes. And are there, if you want to use your raise hand function, we'll know that you want to make a comment. Is there anybody out there at 9 o'clock at night who would like to make a comment?
We do have 4 attendees, but I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to the 4 attendees for hanging in there. All right, so we'll turn it back to discussion.
Would it be helpful for us to put it on the screen?
Yes.
So
I'm not quite sure how to have the group go through this, but I mean, would we ask first, does anybody have any problems with any of the 8 criteria?
I think we discussed it really, didn't we?
Okay, so does anyone have any more comments or questions, concerns?
Mayor Kendall and then Stella.
Okay.
Sorry, muted. So to go on with Carol's trying to figure out if there's support, it does seem like we could say, is there public support or objection? Just so you were looking at all sides of it, right? We're taking in all public comment, not just that whether it's supported, right? And then I think maybe Carol was trying to get at, well, was it covered in the prior GP or DSP? Maybe that's where she was trying to go. I don't know if we want to consider if it was already part of, what we've already done.
Or in conflict with it.
Or in conflict. Okay, fair. That would be good. So basically just have some sort of inclusion of.
So is it consistent or in conflict?
Yeah.
Our thinking had been that those kinds of documents had gone through the public process and previously, but we can call that out specifically.
Something like that. Yeah. Just we kind of look at that and just see if we've covered this before. And then okay.
Or document, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
So is the program a legal requirement? Oh, so this is one that I struggle with, because even in your example, it's like basically, assess the fiscal burden on homeowners to create ADUs. And you put down, is the program a legal requirement? It's like, no, well, it kind of is, because the city can't assess fees. They've got strict rules about what we can do and can't do about ADUs and their fees. And so I think we need to know that when we assess it, right? So even in your example, I was like, I think we need a little more wording around is the program a legal requirement? It's more, are there any state laws relevant to this or apply to this?
Is the program consistent with the state law?
Or yeah, right. Somehow bring in that we need to go look at state law to see if it's applies for this one. And if so, what does it say? Rather than just a yes, no, is it a legal requirement?
How would you? And I'm thinking maybe that's sort of in the analysis part of it, but yeah, how do we?
You want to bring it in. It's part of the consideration. Like basically, if the state already covers it and has to be this, well, then we'll do that, right? But
is it more like what does state law say about?
Yeah,
program?
Maybe. Yeah. state laws govern this program or something, or apply to this program.
It's getting late.
I know, I'm sorry.
Covered this program.
Yeah.
So that one's a little bit more of analysis. It's not going to be a yes or no question.
Right. That's all it was. Yeah. Thank you.
Should we go bigger and say state and federal laws or local or county or anything like that? Or would that be covered? Because are we gonna have other things that we should consider too if we're going in that direction?
Sure.
What if you just said
Does
what law, what laws?
What laws?
That would cover everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the wrong word to do. Okay, great.
Awesome. Excellent.
Stella?
Thank you.
Yeah, I just have a question about, now that we've done the goals, will we be doing the policies in between the program, before we do programs?
So, and we definitely can talk about that. I think we were thinking that the big picture and then the implementation of the big picture and then the policies would sort of like kind of shuffle in within that. In looking at the existing housing element, it seemed that there wasn't a lot more that was added based on the policies. They were more of like a summary of the programs in a way.
Like a categorization?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to go back and look. Because to me, it just seems like the policies are a really important fundamental part of like the city's function. So that's why it just confused me that we weren't going to be looking at policies on their own.
And I think we are. It was just going to be sort of programs first, that then kind of. But we're happy to reverse it. It just, when we tried to kind of start doing that, it didn't feel right to us as staff. Like it was harder to come up with the policy without knowing what the programs were.
That's the format of the last plan.
Yeah,
Policy,
goals, policies, and programs for sure.
goals, programs, policy.
Yep. And we can bring back an example at the next meeting so you can see what we're talking about.
What you're up against.
And then also provide direction if you would prefer to do policies first.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying. I just didn't want to derail us off the program criteria, but it was just this empty spot that I wanted to try to understand. But I'm totally up for hearing at the next meeting, perhaps, how you're envisioning this, starting with programs.
Jim, you have your hand raised?
I do, thank you. I thought looking at number 6 where we added some text, and maybe just to clarify, you might saying consistent with or in conflict with an existing city-approved plan or document. It's sort of self-evident, but I thought it might be helpful to clarify.
Any other hands raised for this item before we call out individuals? Oh, is that your still same hand raised or no? Okay. Okay.
We could just vote on it now, right?
We can do that. Let's do that.
Okay, let's have a roll call vote.
I move approval.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I need a motion.
Second.
We had a Jim moved and who seconded?
I seconded.
Okay, roll call. Stella.
Yes.
Susie Kelly. I saw a yes here, but I saw it. Jim Cervantes.
Yes.
Matt Pease.
Yes.
Carol Singer.
Yes.
Don Jenkins.
Yes.
Beth Needle.
Yes.
Mike Kemp.
Yes.
Christine Rasmussen.
Yes.
And Christine.
Yes.
All right. Unanimous. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for sticking that out.
Yes, I knew we could do it. So we'll move on to our last agenda item, which shouldn't take too long. Sarah, would you mind describing the public comment protocol that GPAC will abide by, has been abiding by?
Sure. So we actually are intending to adopt the same thing that City Council does. So any and all public comment that comes in that's addressed to GPAC or an individual member will be considered public comment unless the commenter specifically states that they would not like it to be public comment. So you may get a lot of things and we will just make it all publicly available to the committee and on the website as well.
Great.
And could we put, we who would like the agenda printed, could we please be in the pipeline? There was a problem this last time.
I'm happy to talk with you offline about what that problem was and help fix it. But essentially, so we print the agenda and publish it in advance of the meeting, and then anything we receive after that gets published and placed on the website up until noon the day of the meeting. So that's a little bit tricky to print out and provide.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant the packet that we usually get, those of us. We didn't get it this time.
Sure. And in the email, it mentioned that it was this pretty much the same packet as the last time. So we weren't reprinting it. The only change was the chart. And to reach out to Jonathan whether or not you wanted a printed version of that. But if there is a problem with that, I'm happy to chat with you offline, Carol. Anna,
Okay, I'm sorry. Anna, you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. So one thing I just wanted to ask, and Sarah and Renata, I know this came up on the Planning Commission hearing recently, is the discussion regarding public comment, and specifically as it pertains to people from the public chiming in on the chat function. So I do see maybe tonight we don't have that chat function. And it's just that reminder that if people do want to make a comment, it really is best to speak during the public comment period or to send an email, because the chats, one, it doesn't follow the way we typically, the order of the meeting and when we're in deliberation versus public comment period, but really just capture a public comment as a speaker, or if you're uncomfortable speaking, just through email. Also, is it an option, Sarah, for people to call you? Like, does that ever happen, or is it really email that is best? So that's kind of statement and question for you.
So people definitely call, but anytime they do have a public comment, I very much encourage them to write it down or attend the meeting. So that's when it gets, it's more easily distributed that way and coming straight from the source rather than through my voice.
Is that chat feature, can you turn that off, or does it have to be on, or?
It is off now. It is not on during other meetings, and so it is off.
It is off, okay.
Okay, great. There's an agenda item that says staff updates. Number 8.
Don't think we have any for you this evening.
Okay.
But we may have some for Tuesday.
Okay, great. Looking forward to them.
Okay.
All right, so I think that's it. Thank you everyone for hanging in there. That was really a great process, and anyway, get some rest.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Really nice meeting. Good job, you guys.
Thank you.